All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know if it's Friday, y'all know it's time for All Politics Are Local. So we were off last week. We decided to take off and put up a rebroadcast of one of our shows. So we're back this week. Of course, Zaid and myself. Of course, Donna may pop in. John is out. The other co-host, he's out on his honeymoon, so he won't be here tonight. So, but we wish him and Ashley all the best. Hope normally. Well, no, I'm not even going to say that. We just we wish them the best. So listen, man, the rundown for tonight, of course, coming up at 6. What we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about conversation that's getting pretty heated in the black community. A lot is going on around Zohran Mamdani, so we're gonna bring in our brother Larry Hamm from the People's Organization for Progress, and then we're gonna bring in, of course, our brother Mark to come in and have that conversation with us as well.
That could be an
So,
ongoing conversation too. We got some time for it, and I got some folks in the pot that I'm trying to pin down on some Fridays that represent different perspectives too. Some younger heads, some DSA heads. And I'll add to that when we get to the discussion.
yeah, so we'll look to have that conversation because it's getting pretty heated. So that's going to come up at 6, and what's going to happen at 7, Zai?
7 o'clock. There's an ugly bill that's being pushed through the state legislature. That's a part of the Trump mega machine riding behind Jack Citarelli around the New Jersey State Police. New Jersey State Police is the other my connection. Or the oversight.
I guess that's some of what Zaid was talking about was going to happen
Yeah,
uh,
and
with interconnection. Go
yeah,
ahead.
that's in and out, and I apologize for that, y'all.
Mhm.
Um, Bill is called S4613 that creates a new department just for them, no oversight of any meaningful kind in terms of accountability. And it's a huge step backwards on the question of accountable policing. So, Racquel Romance Henry of Salvation and Social Justice, they're one of the organizations driving the campaign to fight back against that. Felicia Simmons from Monmouth County may also join that conversation at 7:30 or 7:45, with wherever however it shakes out. We're also going to have a conversation about what's happening at the Newark Public Library system. Newark Public Library systems workers are very underpaid, and
Mm.
they're working without a contract for more than a Mississippi Minute. And they are starting to mobilize among themselves around their own working conditions and their need for improved wages and working conditions. Um, Beth Zak Cohen, one of their organizers, is going to join us along with Carl Schwartz for a conversation about where that's at, where that's going, and why that merits some support. And I think we have the return of DJ Rhino tonight, don't we?
Yeah, yeah,
Good to
yeah.
have good to have our little brother back.
So that should be interesting to have him come back into the scene tonight. He's been away for quite a while, so looking forward to getting all caught up with him. So let's bring Larry in, and in the meantime, while we're waiting on our brother Mark to join us as well. So peace, Larry. Welcome.
Peace, peace.
Of course, y'all know Larry. He ain't no stranger, to the show. People's Organization for Progress Chairman. So, Larry, I want to read something because, in order to get this conversation started, um, I was hoping that Herb was going to be able to join us as well, but
Referring
it
to
was
what?
told me that he had a death in the family, so he was not able to come through tonight to be with us. Mark Thompson is supposed to be joining us as well, so I'll try to get with him. But what Imhotep said was is that Herbert wrote a small piece in the Amsterdam News, and he said this kind of captures his thoughts as it relates to Zohran Mamdani. And as I, when I read the piece, I sort of felt like Herb, and I was, what, let me read it, and then we can get it started just around that, because I sort of felt a little bit the same. So, what Herb says is he starts out with this piece. It's relatively small. He says, "My impulse was to stay out of the contentious New York City mayoral race, with all of the top contenders to some extent tarnished through Zoran Mandani lesser so, no need here to recount how the incumbent Mayor Eric Adams and former Governor Andrew Cuomo are damaged goods. Hardly a day passes without public scrutiny of their ordeals. I must say, I was among the stunned New Yorkers to witness Mandani's triumphant ranked choice victory, believing the craziest here would not fill a ballot square for a Muslim Democratic Socialist candidate.
Hmm.
Now, I you know, that's something I want to talk about too, because something that came to mind for me, Larry, was when the man and I was texting each other while some of this was going on. So, Democratic Socialist candidate with a name that they couldn't pronounce and with little political experience. None of this seemed to matter to voters, and the only thing that resonated for them was affordability. Veteran political pundits were keenly aware that the months between now and the general election in November were going to be filled with elements of surprise, a fun royal, and a flood of accusations between the candidates and their backers. Among the first shots across the bow was news that Mandani listed himself as African American on his application to Columbia University in 2009. Obviously, this drew immediate attention from his adversaries, each each pouncing on the issue. This this revelation was followed indicating that he received a score of 2140 out of 2400 on his SATs, placing him on the lower end of a median score for admittance for being admitted as a student, but clearly above the median score for black students. A right wing journalist reported Mandani explained that he listed both Asian and Black American on the application, intending to cite his Indian ancestry and his birth in Uganda. Evidently, there was no category capturing his complete identity. In the end, it was all academic because despite his father being a faculty member at the school, he failed to get in. Still, there was more fuel on the fire. Former Governor David Patterson stepped into the fray the other day, demanding Adams and Cuomo unite to defeat Mandani. He said that one of the other should step aside because, with both in the race, they would split the vote, allowing Mandani, the front runner, to win. Patterson contends that Mandani's signature proposal of freezing the rent is impossible and that he lacks the experience for the office. So, as you can see, the battle is joined. And much like the rift between Trump and Elon Musk, the contest here has national implications, and we are nowhere near the expected surprise of October. Now, those are Herb Boyd's thoughts, right? And a
Hmm.
couple of things jumped out at me Larry, first off, what is a democratic socialist? What is that?
Are you asking me?
Yes. What is a democratic socialist?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. First of all, there's Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, which is a real organization and obviously is a powerful organization now in New York City, in that they've elected uh, several people to office, including the high profile Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, and now have also elected the Assemblyman Mamdani, who is now the winner of the Democratic primary, the highest vote getter in primary history. And so let me try to explain in as succinct way as possible what is a democratic socialist. First of all, democratic socialist falls under the big tent of socialism. Socialists believe primarily that the wealth of society should benefit the majority of society. Beyond that, generally, they believe that the means of production should be either collectively or governmentally owned. So they believe in a social system, whereas the economics of society will benefit the vast majority of society. Now, under that big tent, you have a number of different tendencies, going from communists to Christian socialists. You know, there's actually a tendency of people, and it's not unusual because the idea of socialism precedes Karl Marx. The idea that, you know, wealth should be shared and that people in society generally should be equal is an old, old idea. In fact, many Christians might be surprised to believe that one of the ideological roots of socialism, you can find it in the book of Acts in the New Testament. It is in Antioch, where the sect of Jews who followed Christ first identified themselves as Christians. And it says in the first chapter of Acts that these Christians owned all things in common. More than that, there's a parable, an example of where one member of the sect tried to hold back money from the sale of some land, and the prophet came in and cursed him, and he died on the spot. And then his wife came in the room, and the prophet said, "The same feet that carried out your husband will carry you out." So this idea that wealth should be shared precedes Karl Marx. What Marx did was try to develop a scientific theory that showed that society evolves to higher levels. In short, we started out as primitive hunter-gatherers. We lived in tribes. Everything was communal. And then when people discover agriculture, that's when you first see the acquisition of wealth and an unequal distribution of wealth. And then society moves from from a slave mode of production into a feudal mode of production, where primarily power is based on ownership, private ownership of the land, and the people essentially are tied to the land. And that evolves eventually into capitalism. And the Marxists believe that socialism is a step along the way to communism, that the ultimate society is a classless society and a stateless society. So under this big tent of socialism, you have different tendencies. Generally, socialists want to see the elimination of inequality and want that to happen through an more equitable distribution of wealth. What happens in the 19th century after Marxism really becomes a worldwide ideology, there were no socialist societies under Karl Marx. The first socialist society to come into existence was that of the Soviet Union, first when there was the Russian Revolution, and then, Russia united countries around it, and it became the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. So up until that point, people described themselves as either socialists or social democratic. That's kind of the flip of democratic socialism. In fact, the original Russian Revolutionary Party was called the Russian Social Democratic Party of Labor. In 1919, after the victory of the Russian Revolution, they form an international organization. And generally speaking, the people who followed the Russian line, so to speak, and I guess by that time, we're talking about not just Marxism, but Marxism, Leninism, they call themselves communists as to differentiate themselves from socialists. And a lot of this had to do with some very specific things, like support for World War I, whereas the Russians were saying essentially that workers should not fight for the capitalists, and they should not support their ruling classes that are engaging in this war. And there were other parties that call themselves socialists or social democratic that in fact did support World War I. And so from the, I guess you could say from the time of the Russian Revolution forward, you have this split, so to speak, between people who call themselves socialists, call themselves communists. Now, democratic socialists, well, let me preface that by saying the Russian Revolution was a revolution that was successful because the Russians seized state power. When I say they seized it, they overthrew the government of the Tsar. They did not come to power fundamentally through an election. It was a seizure of power. And generally we have, after the Russian Revolution, a series of revolutions that take place in the world where the revolutionary parties, the communist parties, seize power. They seize power in Russia. They seize power in China. They seize power in Cuba. They seize power in Vietnam. They seize power in North Korea as a result of the Korean War, which split the country into North and South, and so on and so forth. So the communists generally were about seizing power, whereas the democratic socialists, quote unquote, they believed that it may be possible to, in fact, seize power through democratic means. That is, through elections, that socialist parties would compete with capitalist parties. And they believed, as did Frederick Engels, and maybe even Karl Marx to a degree, that with enough education, it might be possible. They didn't say it was definite, but it might be possible to, in fact, come to power through electoral means. So the people who call themselves today democratic socialists, they participate. They are socialists in a philosophical sense, that they want, and in an economic sense, in that they want to see the wealth of society equally distributed. They want to see some form of either ownership or regulation of the means of production, but they do participate in elections. Now, the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, they come into existence through a guy named Michael Harrington. And he's interesting because he was an advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King. I remember in one of the first speeches I ever heard by Dr. King on an album, Dr. King talked about a book. He said a little book written by Michael Harrington called The Other America. And Michael Harrington's little book was a critique of capitalism and how capitalism produced poverty. And King and Harrington eventually met. Harrington was an advisor to Dr. King, and we all know what happened to Dr. King. But for the sake of time, Harrington first, I think, formed something called the Democratic Socialist Organizing Committee, DSOC. I kind of remember this because I was kind of in the movement at the time. Now, when I say kind of in the movement, I'm talking about that movement around socialism. The Black movement I was in somewhat earlier, some years earlier. But by 1980, there was a real push going on where more and more socialist parties were coming into existence. And people were talking about, we need a new party. We need a third party. So initially, Harrington formed the Democratic Socialists of America. I think while he was around, they may have reached like 50,000 members, and then Harrington died. But to make a long story short, DSA makes a comeback. And I would say they were helped along the way by Bernie Sanders, by his campaign in 2016, because Sanders is a personal Democratic Socialist. That is, I don't actually know if Sanders belongs to Democratic Socialists of America, but he essentially came to power without identifying himself with a particular party. He ran for mayor. He became mayor of Burlington, Vermont. He became a congressman, and then he's the Bernie Sanders. He became a U.S. senator. He did all that running as a third party candidate, not as a party, but as Bernie Sanders. And he's beating them in the general election. So he's a real independent U.S. senator. So I say all that to say I hope that clears up what a democratic socialist is. In short, a democratic socialist is someone who believes in socialism but wants to achieve it within the parameters of the existing social order. They want to transform society, but they want to do it through the democratic process. Now, whether that actually happens or not remains to be seen. But what we do know is that DSA is electing more and more people to Congress. And just, Ed, I know you want to jump in, but just let me say this. Socialism has a long history in the United States. At one point, it was around the heyday, might have been 1930s, 40s. There were 280 cities in America that had socialist mayors. People that we know in the Black movement, like A. Philip Randolph, he was a socialist. He was a member of the American Socialist Party. Many people don't know that about our man, A. Philip Randolph. Even before Adam Clayton Powell, the people of Harlem had elected a communist councilman. You can look him up. His name was Benjamin Davis. He was a member of the Communist Party of the United States. They elected Davis as a councilman, and they elected a guy named Vito Marcantonio as a congressman. He was a communist, so this is not new stuff. And remember, W.E.B. Du Bois, just before he died, while he was an expatriate in Ghana, he joined the Communist Party of the United States. Paul Robeson was a socialist openly. Now, whether he was a member of the Communist Party USA, that's for speculation, or maybe people who know more than I do can answer that. But he was a socialist. All you have to do is read his little volume, Here I Stand, which is his autobiographical statement. So Mamdani is a democratic socialist with a small d and a small s, but he's also Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. are members of the Democratic Socialists of America. And he is going to be the next mayor of New York. But the story won't end there. I doubt that the capitalist class, particularly that faction in New York City, are going to rest. I think that they're going to do everything they can to try to make him fail, because the last thing they want is a socialist, someone who really believes in economic justice and economic equality. They don't want that person in office, so we'll see. But Mamdani is going to win. I saw that Ras Baraka had endorsed Mamdani. If you go look at Mamdani's website, you'll see Mayor Baraka there. And since the election, since the primary is over, a number of Democratic Party leaders have come forward to endorse him. Espaillat, I think, is the most recent from the New York group to endorse him. But I'll say this: the Democrats, I hope they don't commit political suicide. My biggest fear is not that, is something bigger than Cuomo versus Adams. My bigger fear is that they will split the vote and enable a Republican to become mayor of New York. Now, I know some people say, oh, that can't happen. What's his name? Sliwa, Guardian Angels. He'll never be mayor of New York. First of all, New York has had Republican mayors in the past. And in the not too distant past, they had a Republican who changed his party identification to independent so he could get elected. And that was Bloomberg. So the possibility that a Republican can be is very real. And with Cuomo, remember, Cuomo had, Mamdani had, I think, 52%. Cuomo had 44% when all of the ranked choice was finished. That's still a lot, and these guys can mess around and commit political harry-carry, and that would be disastrous for all of us, because just as you said, just as you said, Ed, earlier, there's a conflation of early and Ed. Just as you said earlier, New York is an international city. The mayor of New York, that person has a place in international politics. And believe me, when Mamdani is elected, he's going to be on the international stage, not just on the local stage and the national stage.
So, Larry, first off, I want to say thank you very much for that history in terms of telling us exactly what a democratic socialist is. Because, as one of the sisters, Sister Jones, just said, most people don't even know what that is. And, you had alluded to also that there was a difference between a black democratic socialist as it relates to someone else. One of the things that Mayor Baraka had told me years ago, he said, little did people know that when his father went home to be with the Lord, that he was still a communist.
Yes.
Right? He
Yes.
had never
Yes.
given it up. Right?
Never.
So you could only imagine what his thoughts would be today around seeing this take place in New York. Let me introduce, of course, our brother Mar Thompson for coming, for making it plain. We appreciate you, brother, for joining. We started off because we wanted to help, particularly our people, understand what's really going on in New York before we jump into the meat of the conversation. Because as you know, Mark, I don't know if you've seen, there's some people that's been attacking our sister Tamika in a negative way. And, I got feelings about that, but I'm not going to, we step back and, we know she big and she can handle herself. But what we want to do is we want to be able to, give people, right, some information. Let's educate our people, but also let's make it plain. Because one of the things Erica Ford said to me last night, she wanted to be here with us tonight too, but she got a meeting with D12, and what she said to me, Mark, was she said, "Listen," she said, we've got to do something about the goddamn police in New York. And as you all know, as you all know, Eric being a former police officer, you know where his loyalties lie. And so one of the things is that, when he got elected, he came in saying that, he was going to be the mayor that was going to curb violence in the city of New York, right? But we also know that the police went back to beating black folks and hitting black folks upside their head, right? So we still got those problems. So before we jump into really trying to help black people see this from a black and white perspective, what say you, Mark?
Well, first of all, good to be here with you, good brothers Ed and Zaid. Thank you for having me back. It's been a while. Last time I was here, I endured a little trauma, but got a little PTSD. But I'm glad to be back now, and always good to be. See, when you have him, you don't need me. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I didn't know my younger brother Larry Hamm was going to be on here.
Younger.
It's real, man. Because listen, we were in Baltimore for the State of the People Assembly, and I have all this white on my face. Larry just has on his hair, so some people think I look older than Larry, and all people like, brother, who's that handsome young man you sitting up there next to you? I said, what? What are y'all talking about? So I said, oh, that's Larry. Okay, I get it. So he's a handsome young man. To the sisters in Baltimore, God bless him.
Let me stop you, Mark. That's one of the reasons why we like you on the show, because you got great stories.
Right. So that's my man Larry and 100 grand. Let me tell y'all something. If I'm not here and Larry Hamm is speaking, assume that he's speaking for me too. I want everybody to know that wherever he is,
Man, oh
all
man.
so we ain't it. There's no contradiction between Larry Hamm and me. Ed, you read my mind on the cops though. Larry, it came to my realization a few years ago. You got a mayor, and that's a title, and that's an office. We get all that. I talked to a few other prominent black folk about what you think about you running for mayor and whatnot, and they weren't really interested. When Sheila Jackson Lee announced she was running for mayor in Houston, I can say this now because God rest her soul, she's outrun us to the ancestry. Ben Chavis called her, Larry, and said, Sheila, what you want to run for mayor for? And she said, why, yes, Ben. He said, all they do is indict black mayors.
Mm.
And same thing with Karen. So it's not, that's not a very glamorous thing. I mean, they come for us. Before his death, Clarence Mitchell III founded the National Association for the Study of the Harassment of African American elected officials, because that's what when you run for, think about all the black mayors we've had historically and how they come for them. They come for Eric, and then the orange man pardons him, which I think is his undoing. To the average person, that just doesn't pass any smell test, right? What went down, the way the deal was cut, and what is he doing in exchange? So, but as I look at it, each city has its own unique culture. I don't know that the mayor runs New York City, any mayor, whoever the mayor is. It was Mayor Larry Hamm. Larry and I would have to talk about that. I don't know, and you talk about the capitalist forces, Larry, but I think here on the ground, the NYPD may just run this city. They may be the mayor, de facto. And I think we ought to do some real hard analysis of that. So you all wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to name the names right now, but people we know, I said, well, why don't you run for mayor? You've been on the city council this long. You've done this, you've done that. You the public advocate. They said, man, I don't want that job. You understand what I'm saying? That says a lot too. When folks say, no, I don't, brother, I don't want no part of that. That says a lot right there. And so you got a brother like this who is pure in the sense he done come from some of the traditional backslapping, machine, deal cutting, smoke-filled cigar room politics, right? And so that sets him up as a prime target. He will, if he wins, he will always be a prime target for that reason. But I wonder too, folks, whether the message or the lesson here is so much about Zohran Mamdani becoming the mayor of New York, or is it about Zohran Mamdani showing Democrats, including progressive Democrats and others, how to actually campaign, how to literally run a campaign, Larry, and speak to the people. Everything can be high-minded and ideological. See, what Trump does, he goes right to your pocket. He lies, but he goes right to your pocket. So, again, Larry's too young to remember Lyndon B. Johnson, but I read what LBJ said. He said all you have to do is convince the poorest white man that he's no worse off, he's better off than the lowest black man, and you can pick his pocket. In fact, I'm paraphrasing, he'll actually empty his pocket for you, right? That's what he said. Trump has done that successfully, right? On my show just yesterday, Make It Plain, you can hear y'all, makeitplain.com, wherever you get your podcast. We talked about how this big, beautiful bill, big, ugly bill, is going to devastate every red state and red county that voted for him.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm saying to myself, well, what are the Democrats going to do? So in that moment, I came up with the Democratic slogan for 2026. Was it worth it? Were your pockets picked? All of that. But are they going to do that? Are they going to speak directly to what has happened to these votes? Did they close your hospital, your rural hospital? That's why I like living in the city, y'all. I go in rural places and hospitals 30 miles from where people live. I don't want to live down there because if I get sick, I'm going to die. Because I can't get to that. Ain't no ambulance going to get me nowhere 30 miles away to save my life, right?
Right.
So I think what Mamdani is doing is giving us a crash course, a lesson, a primer, a clinic in how to reach and talk to the everyday voter, the everyday New Yorker. And it's phenomenal. I don't see how he's going to lose. They're going to do everything they can. They've thrown everything at him. There's nothing worse you can throw at a politician than being in solidarity with Gaza. The thing about being an African American, a whole lot of folk ain't tripping. I mean, if anybody's going to be offended about that, we would. We aren't, right? So, white folks going, I'm not voting for him because he said it was African American. That doesn't quite register. Okay, yeah. I mean, he was born in Uganda. Wait a minute. If South Africans can say they from Africa, they're Afrikaner, why can't he say he's a Ugandan, right? So get over that. I heard you just said, Larry, about the other folks splitting the vote for the Republican. I mean, I hadn't thought about that. That's a possibility. But he's a good man. We were on a panel together that was broadcast about Gaza in Riverside Church. At the end of 23, end of 23, end of 24, maybe the end of 24. I take that back. And I read on the panel, it's available on YouTube. I read the speech Dr. King gave at Riverside Church, right? And so I'm sitting there across in the panel. We sitting across from each other, not knowing I was sitting in the midst of who might be the next mayor of the city of New York. So, I think this is great. We will see again how, if he wins, what that means, what he actually will be able to do, and see who really runs this city. That's what I'm curious to see. And hopefully, in closing, also have a template to go to the Democratic Party establishment and say, file them consultants who are telling you to be quiet. That's what they tell the Democrats now. Shh, don't say nothing. Let Trump hang himself. Don't get out here and motivate the masses. Just don't be. When Hakeem did that 8-hour filibuster, and that wasn't exactly what it was, but you know what I mean. That wasn't exactly. You could only filibuster the Senate, but when he did that 8-hour presentation, that wasn't something that consultants wanted him to do. All right, these billion-dollar consultants, like the four of us, don't have brains. Like the four of us ain't been doing this for years. Who have some ideas, especially how to get the black vote and the people of color vote out. Maybe they'll listen to Mamdani. Now, I said the last thing. So he's just hired an Obama operative as his press secretary or communications director. But I don't think that's going to change who he is and what he's trying to represent. I hope that's representative of that class yielding to this youthful and revolutionary approach to politics.
So
well said.
So having said all of that, and thank you, Mark, that was well said. Zaid, let me give you some space because I see you posting a lot. So let me give you some space before I take it into a real deep black perspective that we need to talk about. Because as you know, there's some people in our community who are saying that if we vote for Mamdani, somehow we're betraying the black community and we're betraying Eric Adams with some of the craziness and some of the things that I've been reading and some of the attacks they've been going at Tamika with, which is absolutely insane. So let me let you have that, Zaid.
But we're already in a deep black discussion. We're already there, and let's appreciate our brothers for how they set the tone for this conversation. I'll say personally that I will support that young man unapologetically, but not uncritically, because from our own comrades in New York City, who are black radicals, who are black socialists, who are black revolutionaries.
Zaid is having some connection issues, so I know he's going to be going.
No, you're not. That's the government shutting him down.
Yeah, probably. But there's a white-led organization, right? And that there's a need for the DSA Democrats, and there are a number of them in the legislature and on city council. He ain't the only one. Most of them are black and brown, right? But there is a need for them in terms of strategy to develop a more indigenous conversation.
Look like he froze again.
Yeah,
That reflect the survival of oppression. That is the why socialism matters, right? So I say that just with that caveat. I'm going to actually try to reach out to two socialists, two DSA socialists who are in the legislature to try and get them on the show. Both of them are black, by the way, too. Very bright, brave young people who need to be in these conversations and who need to be brought in. Social media people get called out. But then there's this thing called calling people in, right? We call these young folks in and say, look, you can have a broad-based left-centered campaign, which is principally correct. But do not neglect the most oppressed in your base. And we represent that. Black and brown people who are oppressed in this country represent that and represent the racially and nationally oppressed, right? They have a principal obligation by virtue of their identification with socialism to recognize that. And that when we do have a black radical tradition that can be lifted up and energized.
Real talk. Ed.
No, I know what I'm trying to say.
No,
we got this connection issue I'm having.
Ed.
Yeah.
Since you like stories, before we go, I got a story about his connection going on and off, right? Years ago, and we all know our brother, speaking of socialists, black socialists, Omali Yeshitela.
Right.
People's Socialist Party. He was in Washington, D.C. He had a book. I had to look up the name of it. I don't remember him. But he had a book exposing the roots of the drug war.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the documentation, Larry, about, how much heroin was brought in from Vietnam and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So he started out the morning on Pacifica Radio in Washington, D.C., WPFW. And he starts telling his story about heroin coming in with the body bags. Nixon knew about it. PFW goes off the air. They station.
Wow.
He then goes to Howard University Television and tells the same story off the air. He was on PFW 8, went to Howard University about 8:39 off the air. That's 2 now.
Wow.
At that time, I'm still hosting. Kathy Hughes took an extended leave. I'm hosting Kathy Hughes' morning show on WOL. Comes and sits in the studio with me. We went off the air.
That's
Every
deep.
place he went,
Man,
we weren't using no
that's
Zoom
deep.
back then.
That's deep.
Every place he went, we laugh and we tell that story to each other. I said, man, that's how you know you got some information. Because they cut you off every station you have been on this morning. So nothing surprises me, Brother Zaid. Nothing surprises me about you being taken off the air. So you spitting truth. You spitting truth. This is a good conversation. This is a battle we in. This is something that that's a good exercise. But as Black folk, we're gonna hold them accountable. And we shouldn't have to go too far because the brother said he's an African American anyway. That he's from you. His daddy was in work with SNCC.
Yeah.
Right? And see, some folk got it. Some folk came over here. Some folk came over here and were clear about what the hell is going on in this country and got on the right foot and the right slot in the right place. And we commend. We have allies everywhere. In the ANC, all the brothers we had that were Indian and whatnot. So yeah, we got to do what we got to do. And so let's do it. And let's set this as as a shining example. I wouldn't want to be mayor of New York for the reasons I said. But we're going to see how much power stays with the people and get into, because you see, that's the other thing they're probably most scared of, Larry and Ed and Zaid. See, you have somebody like that on the inside, he going to start tattling and stitching. Hey, guess what, y'all? This is how this little red wagon really goes. Who in here doing, y'all think it's y'all officials. That's the thing they really scared of, right? They don't want him to start telling the story, Ed. This is how this goes over here. This is how who gets what, who, when, where, and how in the city of New York. And y'all don't even know it. But let's bring it on. Let's bring it on. And if folks saying that we do, how can somebody, I just want to ask this question. How can somebody who's cozy with Donald Trump represent us? How can somebody cutting deals with Donald Trump represent us? That's the real question. That's what we have to ask Eric. How can somebody represent?
I think Trump? A lot.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What are you gonna say, Larry?
No, I think a lot of people are going to see through that. I mean, if you look at the latest polling, Eric Adams is at 11%. Cuomo is at 25%. And I think Mamdani was like at 40-something% in the latest polls. First of all, electing a Democratic socialist doesn't mean we're going to have socialism.
Right.
It means you elected a person that calls himself a Democratic socialist. When the socialist part is when you look at their policies. And then even if as mayor, he tries to advance the right policies, he still has to he's not the legislator, he's the executive.
That's true.
And he has a 50-member city council he has to deal with. And a majority of this, although there are members of the city council that are DSA, either big DSA or small DSA, but they're not a majority on the council. And then some of the other some of the other initiatives, he would probably have to get some approval from the state legislature. But be that as it may, I think we should support him. I advocated weeks ago that people should vote for him. And this was before I even thought he had a chance of winning. But my position is always to vote for the most progressive person in the primary and then vote for who you have to vote for in the general election, to defeat the Republicans. But they're coming at him with full force. And you raise a good point, Mark. Not only Trump, but Bill Ackman, the very guy that Sharpton is protesting every week. They out there, when Ackman and Pershing Capital said they wanted an end to DEI, Sharpton and Nan started having weekly protests at his office. Ackman says he's going to give Eric Adams all the money he needs. So you see who the capitalist class lining up behind. They lining up either behind Eric Adams. They still, Cuomo is not out. He lost the primary, but he's still on the ballot with something called, I think, the Fix It Party, right?
Yeah, and let's be clear, Cuomo spent $40 million, y'all.
That's right. And they're going to give him 40 million more. You're going to see, just like Mark just said, you're going to see who's really running the show when you begin to see who's funding who, so you got, and again, as ridiculous as some people, and even myself to a degree, that Curtis Sliwa could become mayor. Remember, the defeat of the Democratic Party in terms of who controls the House came through New York. New York lost 5 Democratic seats in the 2024 election. 5 Ds became 5 Rs. And the Republican majority now is what, Mark? What, 3 or 4? Just by a majority by 3 or 4, something like that. So, the Democrat, I don't know. I mean, I know why. See, from an emotional point of view, you say stuff. How come the Democrats don't just get together and support the winner of the primary? They're not getting together because their financiers don't want them to get together. Their financiers are saying, no, we putting our money over here. See, they've rigged the game. I don't want to sound like Trump, but they turn elections into a money game. And one of the reasons that they hate Mamdani so much is he beat them at their own, even at a rigged game. He beat the House. He came into the House and rolled the ball on the roulette table, and it came up Mamdani. And they hate that because they believe they can buy anything. They can buy elections. They can buy councilmen, congresswomen, presidents. They're all for sale as far as they're concerned. Ackman said, quote unquote, I have billionaire friends. We are prepared to bankroll someone to beat Mamdani. Now, the latest I heard was that Ackman was behind Eric Adams, but Eric Adams is not polling well. So they had a conversation, Mark. Cuomo called up Eric Adams and said, Eric, you need to drop out the race. And then Eric said, Cuomo, you need to drop out the race. But my fear, my apocalypse election is that these two guys, neither one of them are going to win, but they're going to take so many votes that it might still be possible for the Republican candidate to win. We up here talking about qualifications and Sliwa and who he would. They don't care. They just don't want no socialists. They wouldn't care if Eric Sliwa didn't have a high school degree. He's the winner of the Republican primary. And they're going to look at Trump's cabinet. Do any of them people look qualified? None of them. None of them. The people that Trump has appointed to the Supreme Court can't hold a candle to Ketanji, what's her name? Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yep.
So it's not about qualifications, it's business. They want someone in there that they can control and who will put forward policies. Now, I don't even think it's about policy so much, to tell the truth. I think it's just the idea. They don't want the idea of a socialist anything to get a foothold. They didn't mind Bernie Sanders because he a one-man show. He's 1 out of 100 in the Congress. I voted for Bernie. I was Bernie. What was I? The chairman in New Jersey in 20? I supported Bernie. But they don't mind Bernie. He's won. But what's happening is they're looking over the landscape and they're seeing these people pop up here, pop up there, pop up everywhere. And what they're afraid is that the masses of people, see, if we had embraced Dr. King's agenda, we wouldn't be in this situation. Martin Luther King was a democratic socialist. If you read any of his books, I used to say Chaos or Community, but you don't just have to read Chaos. You read any of his books, you can go back to Stride Toward Freedom. And you can see where Dr. King was coming from. If we had embraced Dr. King's agenda, we wouldn't be in this situation. If we had embraced the Gary agenda, I was at Gary. I was a delegate at Gary in 1972. If we had embraced the Gary agenda, we wouldn't be in this situation. But what we're discovering is that Black people are not in the world by themselves, by ourselves. Mamdani didn't win the Black vote in the primary. Still won the primary. Consider that.
Who did win the Black vote in the primary?
Cuomo. Cuomo got the majority of Black votes in the New York Mayor Democratic primary.
You're right.
Because because so many Black leaders are tied to the Democratic Party machine. And the Democratic Party machine was going with Cuomo.
Right.
And the majority of Black votes went to Cuomo, not Mamdani, but he still won because he got some Black votes and he got a whole lot of other people's votes. White, Latino, probably a lot of Asians. They see themselves in him. But, let me say this. Whether we have a socialist government or a capitalist government, Black people still gonna have to fight. Because you can have socialism and still have racism. Right. All you got to do is look at the real experience of the socialist governments that have existed. And ethnic tensions, ethnic oppression, racial oppression still exists in a lot of these places. Look, Mark, wasn't there a big struggle with Cuba? For a time, Cuba would not admit that there was racism in Cuba. Am I right or wrong, Mark?
Right. You're right about that. You're right.
If you'd have talked to some comrades in the 60s and 70s, they would not admit that racism exists. It took a long struggle to get them to even admit that racism exists. And then the party had to take action. I remember when all the people we would interact with were light-skinned Cubans. And then in the aftermath of the South Africa struggle, that's when we started seeing some people with dark complexions in high positions, in the Cuban government. Fidel made a speech. We are all Africans, So we got to struggle no matter who's in power.
So, I mean, we've only scratched the surface and we're out of time, but I do want to say that Mamdani got 46% of the Latino vote. Right. So, and what we've got to keep in mind is that was only the primary, right? And now a lot more people know who he is, right? And he's got a lot more people that are endorsing him now. And I'm gonna share something here, but you all are gonna hear about it, that me and the mayor are working on that's gonna be really big, right? Where we're going to have a different kind of conversation because, as you know, some people are making comments about, saying that somehow Mamdani represents this team of gentrifiers out of Brooklyn who are gentrifying the entire black community. And so they believe, Mark, that by putting that title on him, that somehow that's going to get black folk to go in the other direction. So now let's blame Mamdani for gentrification going on in Brooklyn. Let's say it's his
Man,
fault, right? And what's crazy, Mark, is that we've got some of your favorite black people who are actually leading that charge, right? One of the key people is the reason why you have PTSD, why you come on this show, is leading that charge. And so,
Well, but that's good news. If he's the main spokesperson, we ain't got nothing to worry about. Everybody know more than you think. Know that that elevator don't go to the top.
Yeah,
So
that's
so
cold blooded. He said
and
the elevator don't go to the top.
and,
I'm like Rick James, cold blooded.
I shouldn't have told you that, Mark.
That
But
elevator ain't gone to the top in a while, y'all.
but that's why I wanted us to have this conversation, because some of the stuff that was coming at Tamika I thought was unfair, and I said, whoa, we've got to, those of us who know, Larry and Mark and Zaid, we've got to begin to have this conversation, right? And we've only scratched the surface, so we've got to come back, I think, and we've got to have a part two. And I think we need to make sure we can get Erica forward to the conversation, because some of the things she was sharing, we really want to make sure we have our voice. We're out of time because we have other guests that are in the waiting room, so we need to press on. But let me give both Mark, you and Larry, some parting words. Anything you guys want to share? You can go first, Mark.
Well, I'm good. I'm sorry I was delayed getting here, but this as I said, I would just reiterate that this is an exciting moment. It's an opportunity for us to see how grassroots electoral politics is supposed to work, how we are to reach out to people and deal with their deepest issues and concerns, and not do it in the way that it was done. We all supported our sister Kamala, but she couldn't run her own campaign. She wasn't allowed to do that. Part of the deal that was cut was that, all right, sister, well, I'm gonna hand it off to you, but you got to keep my people in there. And to Biden's credit, he was the only one that gave her opportunity, because if it had been up to Obama and Pelosi, she would have been gone. That was the plan.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
they didn't want her in there.
For real.
Oh yeah, no question about it. That's well documented. They didn't want her there. So what we did was fight. You're not gonna leapfrog over the black woman vice president. And what happened? She raised more money than anybody in history and got 70 million votes. And some of that math is still kind of funny, too. I mean, it was like some hocus pocus with Musk and them. But at the end of the day, because she was using that white consultant class approach, that hampered her. Mamdani's not using that. And I hope those that are coming in to help him from that ilk are not going to, jeopardize what he has in place. So I'm looking forward to it. And at the end of the day, we're going to see how a campaign is supposed to be run. And we're also going to see who really runs New York City.
All right. Larry, what say you, man?
Well, first of all, let me say what a pleasure it is to share the stage with my brother, Mark. And we did get to see each other down there in Baltimore, albeit for a short moment. I wish I could have stayed longer, because I didn't want to get caught in that traffic coming back home. But while we,
Mark is from down that place. That little place called the W. Aren't you from Washington, Mark, originally?
I was born in Washington. I wasn't raised there.
Oh, okay.
I lived in Washington for 25 years, and one of those years I lived briefly in Baltimore. So that's definitely my neck of the woods.
Well, Mark, I guess you didn't know I was born in D.C. too.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, I was born in D.C., but I was raised in New Jersey.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes.
the thing I want to go out with is while we keep our eyes on what's happening in New York, because what is happening in New York is historic. Let's keep our eyes on what's happening here in Jersey, the gubernatorial election. That is like the next rung, under the election of the mayor of New York. There are only 2 gubernatorial races this year in the country, and that's Virginia and New Jersey. And my personal opinion, I'll put it out now so people won't think I'm fooling anybody. I think Chitterelli has to be defeated. He is Trump's person. Trump endorsed him even before he won the Republican primary.
That's right.
He's Trump's person, and a Chitterelli victory would be a Trump victory, and that would be a victory for the MAGA movement. Now, Mikey Sherrill, we got a lot of issues with her record, but at this point, I think it's about it's bigger than Mikey Sherrill, and I think defeating Chitterelli would be definitely to our political advantage, and I say that with qualifications, but Chitterelli, he's got to be defeated. That guy has got to be defeated. I live in Montclair, New Jersey, and it's a Democratic town. Don't you know that Trump and Chitterelli had floats in the 4th of July parade? Big floats in this Democratic town, almost all Democratic town of Montclair. They were up here. And guess who were on the top of the floats? Black people. So, oh yeah. So this is an interesting time that we live in. Tomorrow, we're going to observe the 58th anniversary of the 1967 rebellion. We want everybody to come out and join us. That's tomorrow, Saturday, July 12th, 12 o'clock noon at the Rebellion Statue, 250 Springfield Avenue in Newark, right there at the intersection of Springfield and Irvin Turner Boulevard. And we will have words from our resident griot, Zaid Muhammad. And if Ed Riley shows up, Ed gonna get some too. And if Mark spend the night, he gonna get some too. So everybody should come out tomorrow as we analyze where we are 58 years later. Mark, in 1967, the government said that 18% of Newark's population was living in poverty. Today, the census says 27% of Newark's population is living in poverty. And that's a discussion. Yes. Wow. And that's a discussion we're going to have. And then next week, July 17th, they're going to be, what do they call them now? Good Trouble protests all around the country. Supposed to be 400. We're going to have one in Newark. We're going to rally at the Federal Building. Make enough noise so Alina Habba, Trump's appointed U.S. attorney, can hear us.
Give a big goddamn headache. Go ahead.
That's right. We're going to rally at the Federal Building at 4 o'clock on Thursday, January 17th. We're going to march up to the Martin Luther King statue at the Hall of Records, 495 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. So I hope everybody will come out and join us for those 2 events. Mark, where you at now? Where you at station-wise now?
I'm rarely, a rare occasion. I'm actually in New York right now at the moment because I'm traveling all the time. But I'm here. So that's rare.
But broadcast-wise, where you broadcasting now?
Well, in New York mostly when I'm here, but I'm everything I do is portable. So I'm traveling, show from there. But you all can find me, makeitplain.com, Make It Plain with Reverend Mark Thompson, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit me up. And Ed and Zaid, thank you for having me again. I've been away so long as you. I'm welcome to come back on with Larry anytime. I don't have to do much thinking and preparation when Larry's on here.
Mark, why you?
Larry's the fire. I just come to apply the gasoline.
Mark, here you go, man. Hey, Mark.
Maybe it's up me around since I'm a sass. Larry, what's your sign?
Capricorn.
Oh, we right there together. I'm on the cusp now. I'm on the 21st. So I'm right there with you, brother. When's your birthday?
24. I'm 24.
Oh, he's a Christmas baby.
24th December.
Yep. I'm the solstice. Right. The solstice and Christmas Eve. Oh, yeah. You don't know what you have done.
No.
You don't know what this means.
Now.
And he was born in D.C. What hospital were you born in?
Columbia, when it was in existence. Columbia Hospital.
Okay, I'm a Freedman's baby.
Okay.
The hospital, yeah. So, yeah, but no, we together, folks, and you guys keep this up.
You know what Mark just shared is that he and I share a birthday. I'm on the 21st as well, Mark.
Woo!
Wow.
All this foul situation here. Too much foul. They're going to shut this. Let us go before they shut this down, okay? I know come on after you. I hope y'all talking about something soft. Like some ice cream or something. Y'all not going to talk about politics.
It is fire that brings forth transformation.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for coming through. Appreciate you.
All right.
That's right.
Peace.
Love y'all. Okay. Peace.
Love y'all, man.
All
right, bro.
Peace.
All right, man. All right, Zaid. Let's bring your other guests in.
All right.
That
was a good conversation, right?
It was too short, man. It was too short.
Where's Racquel? Is Racquel in the background?
Let me see. Yep, there she goes.
There you go. All right. Now let's continuity. I don't know how much my two daughters here heard from the last conversation, but they are an excellent segue to this conversation. We just had a very unpacked, radical treatment of the New York City mayoral race from a national perspective. A black radical from Newark and a black radical from D.C. with very clear insights on what the big picture looks like. This segment, we're going to talk about, in particularly, an ugly bill that's being railroaded through the legislature by the Chitterelli Trump forces as a maximum gimme to the state police to give foundation to how they want to come through New Jersey. I want to, and Racquel, I want you to start with a big picture analysis. Before we talk about S4613, I want you to talk about the context in which it emerges. We have this governor's race coming up, right? Your organization is in front of all of the key legislative battles that we're talking about, right? It is absolutely absurd and insane from a social justice standpoint to give the state police, the mother fathers of racial profiling, this kind of pass without any accountability, right? So I want you to big picture this conversation as you see fit, and then let's jump into 4613. And then Felicia, you down in those parts of the state that don't nobody talk about no more, unless they want they don't want too much traffic in the summertime, like people who live there don't matter. Huh? Right?
That's true. That's true.
From the Asbury area, and then them shore towns. We get the settlers come in summertime.
They call bennies. We call them bennies.
Go ahead, baby. Right. With their privilege. Right.
Their privilege.
One Negroes out the way. And
they trying it.
And gentrifies up the behind. So let's take this apart and let's have an elevated conversation on what's wrong with S4613. Racquel, rock it off.
Yeah, thank you, Baba, and good evening. Good evening to my colleagues. I guess the biggest concern I have is the unfortunate amnesia that the state suffers from. Right? It doesn't even make sense having this conversation about S4613 without the historical context, as you kind of laid it out, Baba. The history of the New Jersey State Police is one that is rooted in discrimination. This is not reserved just for barbershop talk. This isn't just urban legend. It's been well documented that this is a body that routinely engages in racial profiling and misconduct and abuse. And because of that, they after in 1999 there was a consent decree, and they were placed under the purview of the Attorney General's office, right? Because they didn't know how to act right. Right? They've routinely proven that they when given too much room, they will abuse and abuse their reach. So now they're under the purview of the Attorney General's office because of this. And then since then, the state, we've had some laudable successes around police accountability, but still, even with the use of force directive and all of that, what we continue to see is that there's continued racial profiling from the state police, and then more broadly with police in New Jersey, they continue to engage in misconduct and abuse at even higher rates, right? So, given this backdrop, given the fact that things have only worsened since 1999, things have worsened since 2009 when the consent decree ended. It's worsened since 2000 when the use of force directive was established. It's worsened since 2020 when the use of force directive was established. It's worsened since 2025, and all of the promises around accountability and transparency. It continues to worsen. Now they want to ask to be removed from the purview of the Attorney General's office when they continue to prove that when given an opportunity, they will abuse Black and Brown residents of the state. So, yeah, it's ridiculous. Make no mistake about it. It is a direct attempt to further abuse and subjugate Black residents of the state. And it has to be addressed. It has to be challenged. It has to be stopped. And given, all of the advocate calls for CCRBs, for oversight, for all of that, and then this is where the state wants to put their energy. It's insulting at best, and absurd at its worst.
That's true. Hello?
Yep.
And I throw something into that.
Yes, sister.
Right? So people think that Project 2025 is only happening in Washington right now in federal. But these the understanding what is actually happening right now is step by step this plan. I did overhear the conversation before. And what you don't understand is that in spaces, I tell people all the time from up north and down south, right? But more up north, right? Y'all know systematic racism. I know what it's like to live in the pressure cooker of the Klan, right? And this is working, right? If you understand that first they had to throw a divide, right? The divide in, if you would realize what came out of the AG's office earlier this year, talking about the state troopers and everything else, but nobody addressed the real issue that was going on. The old school boys, right? The good old boys, that's the word I'm looking for, that's been running things behind the scene forever. And how there've been an internal battle in between that and the new stream people, and like Colonel Callahan, right? No one talks about those behind the scenes fights that's been happening, right? When the old school, I have a friend who was a state trooper, who is indigenous American, and he set forth his proclamation who he was. Somebody in the records office called down there. He was suspended, until he just got out and said, no, I'm no longer the indigenous, right? And the old school boys rid up there and they talked about him, right? I have another friends who, when they systematically were getting rid of all of the black officers coming in, why? Because they don't need anybody new. They don't need the shift of the warrior. So what you have is you have a group inside of the state troopers now working with the underlying infrastructure, like what's happening on the Republican side, right? When you have someone like Jack. Now Jack has been steadily working, right? Y'all don't get to see what I get to see up north, where I was telling someone today. I said about 4 years ago, I'm sitting in a community event and I seen this young black woman that I didn't notice from the scene sitting with a city council person, a current city council person. And inside sitting in that current city council person, afterwards, she slid me an envelope. And I didn't look because I really don't rock with that current city council person. So in the midst of not rocking with that current city council person, I didn't open the envelope. But a week or two after, I opened the envelope and it was an invitation to Jack's house for a meet and greet. Right? If we don't understand that these projects like this right now that's happening, which is literally taking the state troopers and having that group being independent, as again, you don't want the unity and the internal fighting that was happening inside of the state troopers for the last few years, right? They don't want them to be like, well, you know what, the attorney general's office ain't been friend to me as a state trooper. And then if we don't peep the game, we be like, well, you know, the attorney general's office ain't been friends to us either, right? But it's the foundation of growing that we need. So we can't let them go, and we can't let them have that plan. We have to go inside of that state troopers department and say we want real change. And this bill is not going to bring real change. It's not going to bring anything more but arguing and fighting. If we talk about what's happening in the general policing, which is next, right? What we have with the prosecutor's office, no accountability for the layperson, right? What we have inside of the police departments and everything else. If we have them say you're your own crowd, right, and they're their own entity and they're their own force, because who can pull guns on American citizens is American citizens, the police officers, the state troopers. If you have them under your thumb, right? If you get somebody in which they can control as the head of this department, that shifts everybody. And that's what we need to pay attention to, right? What kind of power and what kind of third party ICE agencies, Homeland Security departments, right, that are we creating with bills like this? And we understand that these little what's happening in our towns and across our states it is so important for us to stay vigilant. Is to say, oh no, right? We're not going to go after you. We're going to make sure the right people are inside of these groups, and we're not going to be crazy enough for you to get us hooked on one little piece of blood when there's a whole cadaver on the other side, right? And that's what we have to understand, that this is only an arm of the plan. It is not the full plan. And what the full plan is to have a task force that is in under the thumb of the major power scenes, right? Which we're seeing these beasts happening, right? And these major power scenes, and then we're going to be the victims of it. We don't have to say anything new because they've been killing us in our community, right? We don't have to say anything new. We've been unprotected in our community, right? We know these things. And when I say the use of force, well, one of my towns was the highest use of force. And that person, one of those top people, wound up killing somebody in that use of force in my area. And he's still on the force now. So we talk about what is actually happening across the state is actually making a task force of a group of people, extremist fascists, that are going to be coming after us across the whole. Now, if I was in the strategy, and you got to stop me because, you know, I will talk, right? Right. What we need is a strategy we need the support. We need them to come out and say, no, we don't even want this. That's the push. We need the Attorney General's office, the State Trooper's office to come on record and say, we don't want to go anywhere. We need actually to stay under the Attorney Generals. We don't want to be independently governed, and hold them to the fire when they say it, right? Because then there's no fight. Who are you arguing for? Who wrote this bill? What is this bill for? Who is supporting it? And then you put those people on the floor. Because if the state troopers are saying, hey, we don't want to go anywhere, we're good. This is what we need. And we need someone at the table saying, what do you need? Because we're looking for cures and not band-aids, right? And having that, then you nullify these actions and these sparks in which they're trying to go. Because again, I'll say, like I said in the beginning, Project 2025 ain't just started, right? And it's not just happening in Washington, it's happening in all these municipalities, because that's where all the powers happen, in the municipalities and in the state, and in all of these different smaller level spaces. Because by the time you keep looking in the Washington, and you don't realize that all your freedoms been given away by your council people, your assembly people, your state senators, and everybody else. So again, I'm going to shut up because again,
Atlanta is a serious example of that when we look at what happened with Cobb City, for sure. Racquel, let's build on each other's points, right? There is some strange bipartisan energy with this bill. You want to expand on that for a little bit and talk about the strategies that we need to speak to that?
Yeah, I think more than anything, the bipartisan energy that you're picking up, I think, is an attempt to make the bill more palatable to a group that otherwise would probably push back. And to the sister's point, we have to be on our square. We have to be sharper than that. We have to understand that at the end of the day, when we see what's happening in D.C., it's incumbent on us to make sure that in the state they are doing their due diligence to set up protections and safeguards against police overreach, not giving them an executive branch, an executive office all on their own, where they can, have a field day. So yeah, I believe that bipartisan energy you're picking up is an attempt to make it more palatable. But I believe that the people are sharper than that, and they're hip to what's coming down the queue.
We got so let's go a little further, right? And this is a safe space. Folks will say whatever the hell they need to, right? Right? To the degree that we have this bipartisan energy, right? What do we or should be saying to those folks who are naturally or usually who are identifiedly in the camp of the Jersey Democrats, right? Who are leaning this way, right? Who some feel like me are actually in there trying to do this, falling into the old strategy of running campaigns and dealing with this political environment from the right because they're being challenged from the right instead of daring to challenge from the left because our answers to our problems are on the left. What say you?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. First of all, first and foremost, we have to remind them who they work for. You have to remind them that you have to apply the pressure. You have to remind them that there are consequences to voting against our best interests, and that means constant engagement. That means flooding their phone lines. It means sending emails. It means showing up to their office and respectfully, but being insistent in your urging for them to vote no on these bills, and let them know in no uncertain terms that you do not support this. This is not reflective of the will of the people, in particular the people who are most harmed by the state police and police agencies across the state. Additionally, quite frankly, we have to give lawmakers cover to be courageous. We have to give them cover to do the right thing. That means we need to be showing up. We need to be casting our ballots. We need to be speaking out loud in public, so that they know that when they do engage in the right thing, when they do vote on the side of the people, that they have the cover of the people as well. So I mean, it's both and. The reason why, unfortunately, a lot of these electeds are leaning and flirting with the right, and with policies that really don't reflect the will of the people, is because unfortunately a lot of our people are not showing up and casting the ballots the way that we should. And when we don't make ourselves heard at the ballot box, unfortunately, they don't need to listen to us in the state office either. So we need to make sure that we are exercising not just our constitutional right to vote, but also our duty to hold these folks accountable at the ballot box.
You got it. I'm gonna try and big picture this too another way, right? And Ed, you haven't jumped in yet. I know you want to jump in this at some point too. I want to, we talked about the New York election.
Hmm.
I want to, shore this up and bring this back to the New Jersey election, right? Some of us are very concerned about the shallowness, and I'm trying to figure out the right word of the
Playing, Barbara.
campaign energy of Democrat Mickey Sherrill, and there is a hustle that Jack Ciattarelli has, even though his positions and his line is all wrong. Smooth does have a hustle, right? And unfortunately, there is a recent history of black folks, black clergy, black Democrats of a prominent kind who will go for Republican candidates even if it's not in their interest, like they did for Chris Christie, right? Right? How does that landscape shape this conversation around this bill and what we need to do around this bill?
Is that for?
Rocky, you go first. For both of you. Rocky, you go first.
Oh, I want a piece of that one too.
Oh, you do. We already there. I'm bringing it back.
All right, yeah. So I think just to tie it up, I think we need to be reminded that any component of a campaign that seeks to marginalize our communities is something that has to be outwardly condemned, right? We cannot flirt around with people who appear to um, who engage in niceties, who attend our church, who shake hands and engage in otherwise superficial conversations and discourse. What we're talking about at the end of the day is we're talking about a candidate who is supporting policies that we know are going to disproportionately impact Black communities, disproportionately impact immigrant communities. And when we're talking about immigrant communities, and Black folks make this mistake often, is that this is not just a brown issue. When we're talking about immigrant issues, we're talking about Haitians, we're talking about Dominicans, we're talking about Panamanians, Black Panamanians, we're talking about Jamaicans, we're talking about the whole gamut. So whenever we're seeing these attacks on these communities, remember that it's always about coming back to harm our communities, Black communities. And any candidate who is flirting with that cannot be can be welcomed in our house. And it's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Go, Felicia.
So when you talk about what's happening now is if we're gonna put on the table that there haven't been Murphy was the first in 40 something years Democratic candidate that run for governor back to back. So in all honesty, there are people in positions that already had Chigarelli as the next winner. Right, so they were making their deals. Right, we had candidates in my area that Democratic candidates that disconnected themselves from Murphy's campaign because they're in. I live in a red county, right, a very, very, very wealthy red space. Right, so we had people who don't even know the Democratic components. People are actually Democrats, and I say that saying that the senator out of my space is the chairperson for Mickey Sherrill's campaign. Right, a lot of money coming from South Jersey. Now I'm sitting up here knowing, everybody knows South Jersey. Maybe y'all don't, know of Norcross or anybody else, right? But that's where the money is coming from, South Jersey, and they've left the middle of the state out. So in that space, they've made their deals with spaces like Chigarelli. And because I come from a red space, he's much more open right here than he is anywhere else. So the partnerships and the deals that the so-called blue people have been making in this space for a very long time, because again, like they did with Christie, right? Like they did with it haven't been a back-to-back Democratic winner in 40 something years, my life, right? So inside of that space, they've made their deals, right? And so do they expect for there to be a three Democrats in a row? No, they don't. So they made these deals and these people have made these spaces already. But what we have to show them as a Black community, no matter where the seat, because red nor blue, right, or green feathers, I'm a black bird, right? But my black bird usually takes care of everybody and every color underneath, right? And that's the space that I come from. So when we saying, okay, I know you made this deal with Chigarelli, because like I said, I got slipped the envelope inviting me to his house a few years ago, right? I just chose not to go because that's not my scene. But I understand the people who are making these deals, right? I understand. We have to understand there are people making these deals. We have to understand that people like Mikey, right, and everybody else have made deals similar to this in the past. And her different seat and people that she's sitting next to have made these deals and are making these deals. So how do you hold them to task? Those people won't be in their seats if it wasn't for us, right? That I know specifically the people sitting in seats in assemblies and in Senate seats wouldn't be if it wasn't for the melanated community in my area, right? And that's across the state. And what we have to do is similar to what's happening is have a more unified push and ask, right? It can't be an ask for a thing that only benefits me and my town, right? You have to make sure. And I love when Roz was speaking at the reparations, and he mentioned towns like Asbury in his piece, which was wonderful, and he mentioned towns like Whitesboro in his piece, which is wonderful. But you have to understand that there are more people outside of the urban cities, right? Black people specifically outside of the urban cities that feel disconnected and don't have anybody to belong to. So in that Stockholm syndrome, right, all they have a choice to do is go to master. And what we actually have to do is give everybody a one unified push out. What Ra showed us in his campaign is you don't have to sell out to get out, right? And what also is shown is that just because I'm black don't mean my agenda don't match yours and you're white, right? There's much more disenfranchised people. And when we play that and we understand that role, right, that we as a unified across the state, right, from the grassroots people that you don't think should be at the table to the ones who stay at the suites, right, we all have to sit together with a plan that absolutely benefits everybody for a push out. And because if we don't, no matter who sits there, Mikey or a Jack, we are screwed, right? And we have to push in that agenda because, again, I'm going to say it. If you think Project 2025 was just one little thing that they're pushing, right? They've been and look in the municipalities where they're firing people with criminal backgrounds. Who that most generally affect? Who's that affect? Us, right? When they only hiring here, when they're changing little policies, when they're putting in different kind of requirements, who are that benefiting? When they're making cuts and it seems that it only us in it, right? Who are those little project pieces benefiting? Right? When these nonprofits slide into town and get all the funding that these little grassroots organizations who are doing work get nothing, who is that benefiting? Right? Because when the famine comes, we are going to be the ones devastated, but we also the ones that know how to make soup out of rocks. So again, I'm going to shut up because I talk a lot.
Soup
But
out of
I think,
rock. Soup
right?
out of rock, said Felicia Clemens. Mic drop a pow. And jump in here. So we
But
can wrap it up. These sisters are going at it.
For me, I'm always elated when both of these sisters come on because they're so full of information, and I just want to sit back and really just collect on them. But I think that we've got to be real clear about this election, right? And I think that particularly down in South Jersey, you mentioned Norcross. You're right. I used to live in Philadelphia at one point. I used to live in Boynton at one point. And, Norcross has been controlling things down there, and that was 30 years ago. So, I mean, he's being prosecuted, but it doesn't even seem like he's being prosecuted because he's still running politics, right? So you don't even see that happening. But listen, I think like Zaid said, I think that we've got to keep our eye on what happens with this governor's race, because I think that we all know that if Chitterelli is elected, we all know that it's going to be Trump's policies. And if you think the police are out of control, and if you think that um, ICE is out of control, you ain't seen nothing yet, right? I don't care what these people tell us, right? If Chitterelli becomes the governor of New Jersey,
Forget about
these
it.
guys
Forget.
are going to have lunch, and they're probably going to have more money than ever invested into them, being able to do whatever they want, particularly in our community. So we need to stay on guard and stay focused with that. And as you were saying about, when you talk about our people being politically aware, right? We've got to do our job around that. Trying to make sure that we paying more attention to what's going on politically than we are to what's going on with Sean Diddy Combs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are as a people at this point, right? I mean, you see anything pop up on your phone, I don't care what you was thinking, you going to something going on in the entertainment business, but that's not going to make a difference in your life. What's going to make a difference in your life is how those policies are going to play out from this big ugly bill that's been passed when that stuff finally hits New Jersey, right? you know and I can tell you that from those of y'all, particularly you two sisters, y'all in the ground on the ground, y'all in that fight every day, so y'all know, when you start losing funding for organizations, y'all know the first organizations to lose that funding is who? Us,
Black
right?
organization.
It's us.
We already going through that here in Newark, as Zaid can tell you, right? We're going through that now, and no one has done more work on the ground than the Office of Violence and Prevention and Trauma, with saving lives and turning the police back off of our people. But you can believe that Chitterelli wins, that's all going to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be in a battle. So, I would say that we all need to stay vigilant, just like we were having that conversation with Mark Thompson and Larry Hamm a moment ago, as it relates to what's going on in New York, and folks being able to be awake and know what's going on, because I mean, as the mayor said to me, he said the same thing that they're doing to Zohran Mamdani. He said they did to him. The entire Democratic Party came against the man, right?
When he
And you got
first
to
ran
remember,
for mayor and when he ran for governor, they did it twice.
yeah, and you got to remember,
Our
he only
legend
had,
packed up and left Newark at the prospect of Ras Baraka becoming mayor. Fear of a black socialist.
yeah, yeah, and you got to
The Democratic
remember,
Party fought me for my seat when I was going up for the seat that I'm running from in November. It was the Democratic Party that was ejecting and challenging and bringing up and whole things of lawyers and other things that's coming after me. Right? They challenged my mother.
yeah,
Right? When people don't understand that ain't new. They challenged my sister. They challenged family. They were pulling at straws. I told the judge in my brief to him, right, that if you let this go, then you done changed the law, right? And it's going to rest on you to do this. They were pulling out every stop to keep me off the ballot. We made it, right? We made it, but they were challenging it. And we don't understand, again, red nor blue or green feathers, right? Right? Either or. We have to understand the authority that comes with us. And in that space, right? And we have to protect the bird that we are and have a real foundation on understanding what we're doing, who we get in bed with, who we don't get in bed with, why we do it, why not do we do it, right? Because we can't just
yeah,
sit back and expect it to happen. We can't sit back on people's and their morals. Who says they have it, right? Who says they have morals, right? That's where
What
we
more?
got to play by the rules that are on the paper. And then we be adding in that extra, right? Because we extra people. That's us, right? We got that whole 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional aspect to our persons, right? But then we dealing with people who necessarily don't have that same aspect, right? And that's cultural and spiritual, right? So if you sitting up there playing, knowing that they playing this chess game, then you better break out the third degree, right? And understand the rules that are on paper, right? Not standard practice, but the rules that are on paper, and play their game better because we wrote it, right? So in
Yeah.
understanding that, we have to move as such and have something which I love seeing is this camaraderie of melanation that's rolling across this country, but specifically the state. And only in that space, right, we pay respect to our ancestors and keep pushing, come together
Yeah.
and challenging it, pushing that fire, and then not and value everybody's, right, because one of the value everybody's voice at the table, because one of the most powerful people I know, right, a Pastor Calhoun was a little janitor at the school, but he was my pastor, and he baptized me and my big head self under that water, right? And he pulled me out. When I say powerful prophetic man, that's a powerful prophetic man, but the world might see him as just a janitor at the school. So we can't take on that same under that same mentality of our oppressor when it's time to put people at the table and have that conversation. Because if we don't have it at every level, right? That's how we have a full plan. Have every level at the table to make a diverse, in-depth plan to go after these people who have a diverse and complex plan to come after us.
Well, having said that, right on. So you got your last word in.
Let me just,
Yeah.
Rocky, I
can I
want
just
you to,
chime in real quick?
yeah, real quick, and I want you to do two things too when you chime in. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to restate how we need to oppose this bill. I
Mm-hmm.
want you also to lift up. There's supposed to be a big meeting down in Long Branch,
Yes.
right? Which ain't in North
Mhm.
Jersey around the question of a black agenda, right?
Yes.
And and we didn't ask Larry and Mark the ritual question.
I
We got to
know
give them
we,
the
we
ritual question.
we were so deep in that conversation, brother. We
I
we
know,
we
I
got
know.
lost.
We both dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Rocky.
Yeah, I want to drop that information about Long Branch too. But yeah, it's going to be a follow up on July 26th to the Black Agenda meeting that we had a couple weeks back. It's going to be in Long
Yeah.
Branch, and I am going to. I'm going to get you that information shortly. But we encourage everybody to meeting, attend that meeting, be a part of the conversations. Yes, this gubernatorial election is vital. It's critical that we're all participating, but don't make the mistake of thinking this is the only level of engagement we should be making, right? What are we going to do when the state cuts our fundings to feed our kids in school, when the federal government pushes back on the state, even if a Mikey Sherrill is in office, right? What happens if she folds and now we can't feed our babies in the school? Who's going to feed our babies? We need to be
Right.
mobilizing on a local level more now than ever.
All politics are local, baby.
Exactly. More now than ever, it's critical, it's crucial that we are engaging on a local level, that we are engaging and advocating for state, county, and local funds to support crisis response teams to minimize the police
Right on.
footprint and engagement with our communities. We need to be pushing on the state legislature to advance use of force legislation, right? That's the only thing that's going to provide any safeguards beyond any change in administration against what's happening at the federal level. We need to be, pushing back on this idea that the barbarians are at the gate and we need to keep them at the gate. The barbarians are in the house, they're in the living room with their feet on your couch. You need to be engaging actively at all levels. Contact your lawmakers, tell them to vote no on Senate Bill 4613. Tell them to advance Senate Bill 2348 around use of force directive. Tell them to expand funds and investments to community-led crisis response teams and violence interruption teams. Tell them that we want the money from cannabis revenue that is making white boys in the state rich hand over fist, that we want that money dedicated to directly impacted communities the way that the law, the way that we fought for it and the way the law says it should be done. And make sure that you're part of the local conversations that are happening. Again, Long Branch, July 26th. I'm sorry I didn't have the address on hand.
Second Baptist Church, 93 Liberty
She just
Street,
put it up.
Long Branch. One of our supporters
5
Already
p.m.,
put it in the chat. Thank you, Teresa Jones.
5 p.m., right?
5:30 p.m.
5:30.
Show up, get there early. The last time we had it in Trenton, it was standing room only. We had over 350 people, close to 400 people in attendance. Get there early, be a part of the conversation. When we're having these conversations, we need to be doing it on a unified accord. We can't be talking about different things. The right hand must always know what the left hand is doing. Please, please, please engage. The time is now.
Who you listening to, kid? What's going on before you go? Who you listening to?
Well, right now it would have to be Peter Tosh. It would have
All
to
right.
be Tosh. So definitely, Peter Tosh.
You're an African.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes,
Felicia, who you rocking? Who you rocking now, baby? Huh?
There's this young boy in my area. His name is Daquan, right? We call D Nice, and he's laying it real nice. And
Another
a little bit of Asbury Park old school, but he's young enough to hit that new kind of what he call it, trap soul is he what he called it, and he giving it to me nice. I'm digging it.
That's interesting. We might need to
And
look
he
at
call
that.
it trap soul.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right,
I
Doris.
dig it.
We're glad to have you on. When it gets time to really look at these campaigns, Felicia, we need to have you back on for your
And
district.
and that district is in where you come. Long Branch is where my birth city is. 10 minutes from my home. That's my part of the neighborhood, Long Branch, New Jersey. So we're gonna be rocking
we'll
with
see
you.
you there. We'll see you there.
You sure will. Right? I'm canceling something. I'm bringing a crowd. So it is what it is.
All
If
right.
you run in my space now.
All
We'll
good.
see you
Appreciate
there.
that. That's
See you
right.
there.
Right on.
Thanks for
Y'all
having
be
us.
good.
Thank you.
Y'all be
Thank
good.
you for having me. Love it.
Absolutely. Good stuff. We got another hot section coming up, right? And where is there she go. Is Beth coming in, right? And
Hi.
this is going to be another fascinating conversation. And, let me just start this segment by saying this. And as an old movement head, and I say this to younger movement heads, and Beth, you're a second generation child of protest.
Yeah.
Um, I want to apologize to you that the Newark Public Library just shouldn't be here, and to all the folks who are not getting their due, and the talent that we're losing in this whole process. I just want to apologize to you because if nobody has done that, right? Because we just shouldn't be here, right? When I was a young man, which was a long time ago, right? I had a professor by the name of Clement Alexander Price at Rutgers, Newark.
Yeah.
One of the things that man did is that he beat in our heads, all of us, the value and importance of a good library system, and he emphasized the primacy of the Newark library system. He literally would take us to the New Jersey room, where you rocking now, baby. Before you got there,
Yeah, but I've met Clem. Yeah, but yeah.
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, Beth, right? Carl, welcome to All Politics Are Local. Tell everybody with the time that we got left what's happening on this front. Where are we with this struggle, and what is it going to take to get us over the hill so our library system, which is supposed to be a first class library system, right, reflects that in how it treats its workers. Tell the story, Beth. Beth, you started off and bring Carl into the question.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, so I'm Beth Zak Cohen. I'm the president, and Carl Schwartz is the vice president. And as you know, Zaid, I'm a lifelong Newark resident. My parents have been involved in the ICC and organizing in Newark for a long time. My dad's Weequahic High. So, I love Newark. I went to Newark Library as a kid at the Van Buren branch, at the main branch. And I work in the local history room where we have so much history for hundreds and hundreds of years in Newark. Ken Gibson collection, Newark Eagles collection. There's a ton of great stuff there. But the
Eagles
salaries
Whoa!
surrounding libraries are really they were really low. We're getting raises of 2% every year. We also have the New Jersey Library Association, which recommends salaries, and we were 50%, 70% below those.
So I decided to run for president of the union, and Carl ran for vice president, and we started working on it. So last September, we had a big rally in front of City Hall. We had about 100 people, and we were able to we had a lot of people talk to City Council. Me and Carl met with each City Council person by ourselves, and we were able to get $1 million extra for the library, which was, amazing, because to back up, the budget was cut by a third under Booker, unfortunately, in 2009 during the recession. So $1 million doesn't bring us all the way back up, but it's a great addition. So we started meeting with administration to try to get a better contract, and that's where we're stuck. We're still stuck there. They basically won't move. We just want our goal is just to have a living wage for our workers. Our workers who work here full time are making $31,611. Some of them who are making the 30,000s have worked there for 20 years, 30 years, 15 years. They have worked there a long time, and they're giving their all every day to this library, and they can't afford to live in the city because 31,000, you can't afford to live here. So that is our main goal, to get those lowest workers up. Back in May, Mayor Baraka had his State of the City, and he said that all city workers were at $40,000, and we are at 31, as I just said. So we believe if the rest of the city workers can come up to 40, we should be able to come up to 42. They've offered us 1.75%, which doesn't mean inflation. We can't afford that. And again, the libraries all around are paying a lot more, so we're losing staff who are dedicated to the community, who care about the community, who have knowledge about the community, who are having programs all the time that bring people out, that connect with people. So I find it really sad, because I love this community and I love the library, and I want things to be better and this to be a world-class library system for everyone here. So we have some events coming up that we can talk about. But Carl, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. I can jump in a little bit. First, give thanks, Edward and Zaid, for having us. I was listening to your segment about Zohran Mamdani, and it was great. I got to canvas for him, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I think Beth covered what it's like to be a library worker very well. When you walk into a public library and somebody greets you at the desk and helps you find a book, they might help you at the computer. There's a very good chance that person is not making a living wage and is struggling in their personal life with bills at the end of the month. And I think we've seen over the years, because people who work in libraries have become so undervalued. When it comes time for cities to make budgets, libraries are often an afterthought. A huge amount of municipal budgets gets gobbled up by the police, and there's often just table scraps left over for public libraries. A lot of these problems go back to the 2008 financial crisis in Newark. During that time, when the banks were robbing people and getting bailed out for it, the public sector was getting cut. And, the financial crisis was AKA fixed on the backs of the public sector, which shrunk, which less funding went into the public sector during this time. And as a library system, we have never actually recovered. Beth has gone into, how pitifully low the salaries of a lot of people in public libraries are. And it's even more than that. It's about the level of respect that we think we deserve. I think a lot of people don't know what it's like to work in a public library. They think it's just a quiet place where you get to read all day and nobody bothers you and things are very calm. But being a public library worker, we are the social safety net for a lot of people. When people have nowhere else to go, when they're dealing with issues related to poverty and homelessness and addiction, they turn to the public library. And our staff is on the front lines of every social crisis that you can imagine. This work it's very rewarding. We all want to do this work. We're all happy to do this work. But at the same time, this work can be very stressful. I can say, especially with the Trump administration being in power, I'm the manager of the branch in the Ironbound. So we have a lot of people coming in who are panicking about their immigration paperwork. and they have nowhere else to turn for help but the public library. We have a lot of people, with our housing crisis, people who are unhoused, they have nowhere else to turn to. The shelters are closed during the day. They have to leave. And we are the support service for hundreds of people in this city who, I don't even know what they would be doing if they didn't have a library that they could go to cool off in the summer, to get some water, to use a computer, to try to get some resources. So we understand that the work we do is extremely vital, but we're being so dramatically underpaid for this incredibly important work. And I think we see similar things across the entire economy in what's often called the care sector. People who do jobs that involve caring for other people, and that could be home health aides, child care workers, elder care, people who care for others with disabilities. These are some of the most important professions, but they're also some of the lowest paid. And that's something, we really got to change if we want to create a better world as a whole.
Absolutely. So let's talk about where's the money, right? Who got the money, right? Is it just the city, or who else we need to be talking to? And let's
Well,
talk
the city gave us $1 million extra back in September. So now the library administration has that money, and they still won't agree to a contract that's paying, even the minimum $40,000, which the rest of the city is paying for the workers. So right now, we're in mediation on the contract. Our next meeting is the 16th. So we're doing a picket at 10:30 where we can come out and try to target the administration there. We have a board meeting on July 23rd after work, 5 p.m. And then on July 26th, we're going to have a big rally. So we're really trying to target, the administration at this point. There's also the board of the library. So the board and administration sort of control. Yeah.
Well, okay, now let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
What time, and we need the contacts for library leadership if that's going to put the pressure.
Yeah. So, well, should I tell you what time ends the contract?
Yeah.
If you go to our website at npl.org/about, all the contacts for leadership are there. But also on our Instagram at Newark Library Workers, in our link tree there, you can send a letter straight to the director of the library. So we have that link there as well. And then July 16th at 10:30 and July 26th at 1:30 are our two things coming up.
Go back and repeat where the link is on your page. What's the site?
At Newark Library Workers on Instagram.
On Instagram, okay.
Yeah. Or Facebook. Okay. Instagram or Facebook, both.
Okay. Okay. Well, right on, y'all. Right on. You have our full support here. Right. I want everybody to be clear on the target, right? There is a difference. I mean, you got some support, some fruit from your labor battle at the city council that came up really wild. I was trying to pull an article that Patch did on that. But if the pressure needs to go on the administration for just getting some of that, we need to put the pressure right on them, and we need to do that unapologetically. They're going to have to come out from their hiding places and address this community, right? So I want to thank you really both for what you're doing and how you've been doing it. I should tell you that this is, well, let me ask you this, right? Y'all join a much bigger union. We can't lose this. We can't lose sight of the strategic value of that, right? How has AFSCME, the bigger union, weighed in and supported you? And are you getting support from other unions in the area?
Yeah. I can take that one a little bit too. First, other support from unions in the area, absolutely. I think the biggest thing we are relying on to get a good contract is support from both the community of Newark and also the labor movement as a whole. And everybody loves library workers. If you've ever interacted with anybody at the Newark Public Library, you were probably like, these are great people. How can we support them? Lots and lots of people want to support us. I think, one of our biggest supporters have been the faculty unions at Rutgers. So many professors and people who work for Rutgers really understand the value of libraries. I mean, it goes without saying that a higher ed union and a public library union, we can work hand in hand together. I've also had members of HPAE, which is the healthcare union at University Hospital, reach out to us. We've had people in other AFSCME locals come out and support us. And we really feel a lot of love. We've had Pop and Larry Hamm have come out. I want to give a shout out to members of the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA, have been huge supporters of ours. Best Family and the Ironbound Community Corporation, huge supporters. If I don't remember any groups off the top of my head, it's not because we don't love you. We love all the support we can get. We've just gotten so much. I probably should have prepared a list of all the shout outs we could give. But it's been so beautiful seeing so many people show up to our pickets who are just community members, and they can say, hey, I just want to come support because I love the library so much. This one time, you guys helped me find this book and it really changed my life. And now, I just want to give back to you all.
There's a quote, it popped up, and I didn't see the whole question, but Aretha Jones was asking the question. Let me see if I can pull it. Right?
I see it here. Is NPL an Essex County branch or Newark City only? Yeah.
Well, go ahead and answer it. Go ahead, you can answer.
So it's only Newark City. We have 6 branches and the main, and Carl is at the Van Buren branch, as he said, in the Ironbound. We have the Weequahic branch, Branchbrook, North End, Springfield, Vailsburg. So we have all these locations all over the city, but it is funded by the city under there's the Office of the Mayor and agencies, and we're right under there on the city hierarchy there.
Later that day, and you have a big supporter and someone very dear to me and dear to us in this space, the great Queen Mother Imaku, is having a conversation on the film Sinners at the Branchbrook Library on the 16th at 5 o'clock, and she'll be back there on the 30th in her healing capacity, teaching on the history of herbal sachets or greenery bags. It's a long conversation, but you have supporters right there in the community who do it in their own way, trying to drive support to this question. Now, Ed, I don't know if you can remember when back in the 80s and the 90s, when I was a lot younger, we were a lot younger. I used to use that library like an organizing backyard, meaning that I used to take that library and Malcolm X Ancestral Memory Project, political education. I used to pack that place for a formation that came out of me doing Asada's first book party there in 1988. The first book party in the country for Asada's autobiography took place at the Newark Public Library, right? The People's History of the Black Panther Party, right? Had an oral history project right there at that library. Pack it monthly, right? Did that for years. And of course, we had a great man who we have a space named after by the name of James Brown, not to be confused with the Godfather of Soul, but the a brilliant community-minded librarian who ran what we call the Lorraine Hansberry Lecture Series to make sure that the community stayed engaged from the heart of the library itself, right? So the library has been an important part of our larger community. And we're not just talking about the main branch. Those neighborhood branches are important, right? The great Wilhelmina Holder, who passed away a little while ago, she used that branch, right? That was her base for her doing her community stuff and whatnot. So, the whole system needs to be far more fully supported and funded than it is. So we want to make sure we put a pin in that. Now, let me ask you both a question, and I'm sure neither one of you are ready for it, but it's a question we usually ask everybody. This is a hip-hop political talk show. who in the land of hip hop do you listen to, or are you listening to, that help you get through what you're doing? And if there's some other music you get down with, that's cool too. But who gets you rocking in the land of hip hop? Start with that.
So I don't know if Beth or I are either of us are, following hip hop too closely, but I do want to give a shout out to there were some performers at the Glastonbury Festival recently, Bob Villain and Kneecap, who they're two hip hop artists in the UK and Ireland who use their platform to stand up for human rights in Palestine at the Glastonbury Festival. So I thought that was really inspiring.
Say their names again. Say their names again. Say their names
so
again.
the Irish hip hop group, they're called Kneecap. And then they're, the one from the UK, they're called Bob Villain. It's a play on Bob Dylan, but with villain.
All right.
And I'll also give a shout out. We lost Sly Stone recently, so I've been going through the back catalog of Sly's discography, and I mean, what a genius he was.
The father of West Coast funk, yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Beth, what say you?
Well, I prepared for this because I knew you were going to ask me. I guess the hip hop I'm most familiar with is, like the revolutionary hip hop. So last month we had a documentary about Gil Scott-Heron at the library. The revolution shall not be televised. Public Enemy, Fight the Power. So that's the kind of thing I am most familiar with, that I know most about, and I'm a fan.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you both. Beth, give your mother and your father my regards. Go back a lot of years with your mom. She's, they're both of them. They're both, very important to the landscape, the humanity and the dignity and the character of this community on the activist front. And I'm sure they're very proud of
She's
who
still
you are.
working hard. Yeah.
They're still out there. That's right. Still out there. That's right. That's right. And both
at Carl's branch all the time with her getting her books.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're big supporters of the library.
In the chat here, about the Clinton Hill branch here. Yeah. The Clinton Hill branch, if you watch the board meetings, which are live streamed on Instagram, not Facebook, sorry. And I definitely would, there are public comments. So if you're interested in the library, July 23rd is the next board meeting, 5 p.m. You can come make your comments, and you can also see them on the Facebook. I think Facebook now deletes after 30 days, but the back videos are there. They are talking about working with the Clinton Hill Community Organization, Katim Sharir Al, to do the Clinton Hill branch. So that's in progress. No tax on overtime doesn't really help us because we don't really have overtime. We're 35 hours a week government employees. So that I wanted to just answer those two questions that I saw. Yeah.
Awesome. Very good.
And just follow us at Newark Library Workers to keep up with everything. Yeah.
Right on. What I
want to go to the library. Go to a program. Go to the amazing ones at Branchbrook. That Saeed mentioned, and just go on the website and look at the calendar. There's tons and tons of fun things going on at the library all summer long. There's lectures, there's dance parties, there's arts workshops, and everything is free. So there's no reason.
Tonight they were out there for the dance party. They fill up the entire space. There's a million people out there. Yeah, so that's a good time. Yeah.
Go ahead, you gonna say something?
I wanted to ask you guys a question before you left. You said that the city council had approved $1 million for you guys, and that $1 million has just been sitting. They have not distributed that in terms of increasing the wages of the employees at all.
Yeah, they have not approved we have no contract right now. As far as whether it's been spent on anything else, we have no idea. There's been no audits, although legally they should have done an audit. They should be doing audits. There's no public budget information on our website. There's nothing like that. So it's a big lack of transparency as far as how money is being spent.
I think everybody wants to know, right, how the money, how their employer is spending money, right? And you want to know, regardless of where you work, you want to know if we're not getting raises, why not? Where is the money going instead? And as a public entity, we have we can get that information better than somebody at a private company. And that's one of our main demands is we do want financial transparency. If you're telling us you can't pay us a living wage, well, let's see why. Let's open up the books.
Yeah, it should be very forthcoming. It should be very forthcoming. That shouldn't be an argument.
And so that is a city law that all city employees should be making at least $40,000, as you had stated earlier.
No, it's not a law. The mayor recently had an initiative to bring all city employees up to $40,000, and so he did it for all the other departments. Obviously, the library, it's still under the city, so we believe that the library should be included in that. Yeah.
And was that I think you said, Beth, you'd went and you spoke before the city council.
Well, we spoke to them back to get the $1 million. We spoke to them a lot. Just this last meeting, I gave them some information to just let them know what was going on with the money, etc. And the BA did speak and say that Mayor Baraka believes that all employees should have a living wage. So, he's saying Mayor Baraka does believe in this. He also stated that they don't negotiate directly. They have this level of administration between them. So, he's saying he has limited power. I don't know how much power the city does have here, but they could probably influence them a little if they wanted. I don't know. But in any case, the mayor, we have heard, does believe that everyone should have a living wage. So that should apply to the library too. Yeah.
And so have you been back to the council to, put that before them to let them know what the current movement is and what the current climate is with regards to that? I mean, I know you guys are protesting.
Yeah, so I was just there on the 3rd, the meeting on the 3rd. We weren't signed up to speak because we didn't have enough advance notice, but we handed some information to the councilman, and I also, we've also been emailing them. And I am signed up to speak for August. It's the first Wednesday in August. So presuming that nothing changes by then, I'll be there speaking. Did you sign up too, Carl?
Yeah, I'm going to try to speak as well.
So we'll both be there.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what I would advise. Of course, we're all politics are local. We know most of those ladies and guys, and so I think that you all keeping that before them, right? Obviously you got the pressure in the street that you all are doing, but also you need to keep that pressure, going inside City Hall, right? So that the mayor's made aware that you guys have not been brought up to $40,000. So that the council is made aware, so that those, because remember, those people can be brought in before the council to testify, to give an explanation, right, as to why. I mean, they may not tell you guys, but the council can say, yeah, okay, well, you know what,
gave y'all $1 million, what you doing with it?
Exactly.
And the board is also there's members appointed by the mayor, so there's also that connection there. Yeah.
Right. So that's why I'm saying you guys want to be able to push that, because if they won't tell you guys, as you just said, Beth, if they won't tell you and Carl, I mean, okay, great, no problem. Well, council, can you, invite them here and have them give you all an explanation as to why there's not been any movement with regards to the $1 million that you all had given to, the library for our salaries to be brought up, and what you may find is that there may be some movement before they come before the council. They may just say, because from a legal perspective, judges always say, well, you know what, before you guys come before me, why don't you guys go back there, see if you guys can talk. And if you guys can talk and get something hashed out, there's no need to go back before the board and you guys come and have to testify before us and tell us what's going on with that $1 million. That's why I'm saying, you guys want to keep going back and, saying to the council president and to the other council members, listen, we need your help. How about inviting these guys here to I mean, you see that's what these folks do in Congress all the time, right? They will invite folks to come before them and speak and give an explanation, you guys obviously, are saying clearly and loudly, I can't live on $31,000. That's, come on. This is outrageous, right? You
Yeah,
can't
I think that's
afford.
great advice.
Yeah, yeah. And just
Yeah,
to, I'm just seeing another comment here. Yeah, our budget does fall in the main municipal budget for the city because last year we went through this whole process. We were at the budget hearing. It is different for different cities, but in Newark, they when we went to that when we were talking about the budget last year, and we talked to the councilpeople privately, they were looking into could we do a library task, should we do something like that, but as of now it just comes from the main budget of the city. Somebody was talking about that here in the comments. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we do plan to we will keep being annoying to the people who have the money and who have the power, and
Yeah, so we'll be
a
back at
lot
the city
they know
council
us
next
already,
month.
but they're going to get to know us even more in the coming months. And I always tell them, if you think we're annoying, we'll go away if you help us out. We won't be annoying forever if you can help us secure this good contract.
yeah, I think that's definitely what you do. I think that you keep that before them, and just keep that out there. And what you want is some of the people who enjoy the library, right? Have them come before the council and speak, right? That, what does the library mean to them, you
Yeah.
know, and let the council hear from their constituency, right? You
Yeah,
know,
so
I
that
was
was
really
great as a
I was gonna say I was really moved when we spoke during the budget hearings that we thought it was just going to be Beth and myself, but a lot of people from the community waited hours to give public comment to talk about what the library meant to them,
yeah.
and that was really just a beautiful demonstration of solidarity from the community. I was like, I know you probably don't want to spend 7 hours of your day sitting in a budget hearing, but people are that passionate about their libraries and they were willing to do that for us. So, we were so appreciative of those people who stuck around and gave public comment about the library.
Yeah, you just heard, Zaid tell you, a moment ago, all the work he used to do at the library, and one of the things, you know, when I went back to Rutgers and got my law degree, got a political science degree, and then went over to NYU and got a law degree. One of the things that Dr. Price used to always say to me was Zaid was his best student, right? I thought I was his best student, but he told me Zaid was his best student. And when Zaid just said how all the work he did in the library, I now know why. Zaid did all his work at the Newark Library. I did all my work at the law library. But somehow I should have been at the Newark Library. I get it now. You know what I mean? But listen, as Zaid would probably tell you all got an open space here.
Oh, thank you so
Anytime
much.
you need to come and let the community know what's going on. You see everybody's chiming in and trying to give you guys information and support. So we're definitely
Jones
there with you
find
all.
out some serious information.
Yeah, she's right. She said she's on the board of the Neptune Library. So,
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, the state gives a certain percentage per population. Yeah. So it's good information. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, we can reach out. And yeah, Zaid
Yeah,
was at the library. Was it last month in the panel on Malcolm
We did
X
the
too,
Malcolm,
which
yeah,
was
we
a
did the
great
Malcolm
panel.
conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep. Well, when I grow up, I want to be like Zaid. I want to hang out at the Newark Library.
No,
Yeah.
you don't.
I mean, I think Zaid's
Well, we
just an
were,
example of how much libraries change people's lives and can, open up intellectual spaces for people and how important they are. I mean, yeah, we hear a lot of stories like Zaid's from our longtime patrons about, I was a kid and I came in here. Could be like Zaid, I found this book about Malcolm X or Asada Shakur. It completely changed my life, and I only got it because the public library had it and a librarian helped me find it. And yeah, I mean, that's why I love being a librarian. I love hearing those stories. And we actually had one of our longtime patrons at my branch who had been coming there for years. He passed away recently. And in his obituary, his sister mentioned our branch of the Newark Public Library because it was that important to him. And, you know, I was so moved by that. And I'm just like, this is an example of how libraries change people's lives for the better.
And the big picture, what you just said, Carl, fascists target libraries too.
Fascists, I mean, one of the first things Trump did, there were a million scandals again when Trump took office, right? He was doing a million horrible things. I don't know if a lot of people noticed, but he destroyed the one department in the federal government that funds public libraries called IMLS. He tried to just unilaterally dismantle it. Luckily, a judge stepped in and said, you know, this was created by an act of Congress. Congress has to vote to dismantle it. But, you know, he's doing everything he can to destroy any federal support for public libraries and museums. And, you know, we are in for some very dark times at the federal level.
And shout out to AFSCME. You asked about AFSCME. They were involved in that court case to
AFSCME, yep.
Yeah.
Right.
The IMLS, yeah.
All right, y'all. Awesome. Good conversation, right? Good work, good effort, right? But, you know, it's, you know, we're not finished until you win.
Yep.
Not finished until you
Thank
win.
you, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. We really appreciate
it. If you get back on, Beth, let us know. You know how to get me now. Okay?
Oh, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Right.
And thanks for oh yeah, there we go. I just put it on the Facebook and it pops right up our
good
information there. Oh yeah, and the makerspace is a great, I don't know if everybody knows about that because it's new. Queen Mother mentioned that 3D printer, sewing machine, recording booth, all you can use for free. So that's another great one. You go online, you make an appointment, everybody can come out and use it. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Sam, who's also born and raised in Newark here.
Man, yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, y'all. All right. We'll see you on the 16th. And forward is the motion.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good segments.
Yeah, man.
I just saw. I didn't realize this, Ed. Did you know that Myrna Morales was supposed to join that segment?
I did, but I didn't see her. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You know, I was looking for her, but you know,
probably popped into that. She's on Denver time. I didn't know she was in the Denver area all this time.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that might be it. You know, I didn't see. I only saw those two, but yeah, I mean, it'd been interesting to get her input with regards to that. You know, Rhino had confirmed, so you know he's supposed to be up. Otherwise, I would have extended our other segment, right? So,
indeed.
So I'm not. I need to send him something to see what's going on with him.
Yeah, he should be. He should definitely be on. It's been a minute, and he said he was going to be back. Right. One of the things, and this is partial. Somebody lifted it up. I think it was you. Might have lifted it up, right? That we more worried about it than we worried about people, you know, affecting our bread and butter. The 20th of this month. My organization will be doing its first official event in New Jersey at the bookstore. Malcolm X Commemoration Committee will be doing a book signing with Tamara Payne for her book. But before the year ends, November 25th is the International Day to Eliminate Violence Against Women. And we're looking at a special gathering, either virtual or in person or both, to address that. And one of the things we got to look at is, you know, the violence that's in this, that we it's still not talked about enough within the culture, right? Hip hop culture that tends to get overlooked or looked aside unless somebody gets caught doing something they had been doing all along. And you know, Diddy is just the latest iteration of that. And you know, we just had 2 kids that got killed.
Yeah,
all of the corruption work that we do, right? 2 daughters killed out of dating situations, right? On domestic violence, right? And so, we need to those Diddy conversations and whatnot. I know they're not comfortable, but they are indeed very important to have, because it ain't nothing right about abusing and exploiting and assaulting our daughters in any respect. All that is just straight foul.
Yeah.
And we need to be more out loud about the condemnation of that and the isolating of those who are about that mess in our community. So I just thought I should note that as we figure out how to transition for this last few minutes that we have.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I just sent him a text to see if he's coming through. He confirmed with me. I think you probably saw it where he did confirm.
yeah, earlier, yes, indeed.
So we'll see. Uh,
Yeah, the Queen Mother absolutely agrees with that. She just survived an ugly domestic violence situation herself, and she has my whole heart for that. Oh,
but those are real conversations. I think that we need to have, because that most of the violence in our community. Somebody said earlier that we should address the misogyny in our community. You
somebody
know,
did say
and
everybody
and
agrees too.
yeah, and those are real conversations. The problem is that it's always about vulnerability, though. You know what I mean? Because people have to be willing to be vulnerable, and people. We had some discussion, some maybe about a year or two ago. Zai, remember we had some people on who's what was it about a wedding? Where we had
Mhm.
some guys who was going out there dealing with some of that. Where they were talking with the guys who were involved in domestic violence and so forth, and they were trying to curb that. I don't know if you remember that.
Can't say I
Is
do.
on who do something every year, where she dress up, she put on a wedding dress or something, and she
Oh, the
goes out
Bronze March.
and
Josie Ashton.
protesting.
Yes.
What's on?
Josie is an incredible. We haven't had Josie on. I would love to do something with her. Right? She's in the Florida area now, but Josie's a New Yorker.
Yeah,
Domestic violence
but
survivor.
those are conversations I think we're gonna have to have as well. Where our people are, and try and help all of us get through that, because at the end of the day, all of us are suffering in some kind of way, and those are real conversations. But the problem is having a safe space, right? We have those conversations, and other folks don't feel like they're being attacked, or if they're sharing a personal incident or something that happened in their life, um, that they can tell that story, and they're not going to be taken advantage. You know, whoever asked that question, yeah, you're right. We probably might want to talk about doing the show like that. Some professionals, right? And I think we've done something like that. We've had some folks like that on, who could probably help with that conversation, right? And help us, uh, talk with our people, and help them through the conversation, because the thing is that as Mike Barbie says all the time.
Did you freeze? I think he froze. And I think we both having connection issues. I know I'm having some, right? But we may need to go out and come back in. And Ed was just referencing William Michael Barbie, who's a brother who has got quite a sizable group of brothers who are addressing the question of Black mental health for Black men, a safe, vulnerable space that merits a lot of support and appreciation. Brother also did a film, a full featured film on the issue, and that is directly related to the very thing that we're talking about, right? You back? You froze up. You was on a roll too. Um,
Zaid, I think Mark said
Mark
about
might have been
not
right tonight.
any more reason. We're being knocked off the air.
He might have been right about tonight for sure. We all having these damn issues with this Wi-Fi connection.
But remember, Mark Thompson was saying that this stuff is not a coincidence. Remember, he was telling the story, about when they're sharing certain information.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not a coincidence, y'all. This
That was the PFW, the story he was telling about. Yeah,
yeah.
that was serious stuff. PFW is public radio. Public radio has a vulnerability, by virtue of how it's funded. That was a real story. That was a real story. PFW is still here, and it's one of the public radio stations that I support, just like I support WBAI and some others in that Pacifica network that are publicly funded as opposed to being corporate dominated. And that creates a dynamic for safe information space, right? So those things are important. Those things are definitely on off. Can you hear me? Yeah, you alluded to stuff coming at Tamika, right? We probably should lift that up. And in fact, I have a call out to Tamika and to Linda both, Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsa, two co-founders of Until on this election that's coming up that's targeting Zohran Mamdani, right? Those are two young voices. One is Palestinian and the other is black, and both are female, right? And both of them are young, right? Definitely have some insights that we want to lift up, and Tamika has endured her share of folks coming at her, from a range of the spectrum. So I just wanted you to give yourself a chance to lift some of that up, and so we can highlight that and support her the way we should. Tamika was just at. They both were at and played an important role in an important gathering that was organized out of our community-based violence intervention work. Pull Up for Peace. It's a conference of the boots on the ground folks, the high risk interventionists, the hospital interventionist workers doing this peacemaking work on our streets in a bunch of cities. It was hosted in Atlantic City. It was the target population were the folks doing the work on the ground from the Boston area down to the Virginia area, but wound up pulling people from Chicago, from Texas, from Detroit, from St. Louis. You hear what I'm trying to say? From all the way as far away as Seattle, right? Powerful. Of course, my child was all up in that. So I want to give her a shout out to great Keisha Yuri, right? And Institute for Research in Social Justice. Jamila, Jamila deserves some love. And she hasn't been on the show yet either, right? But at some point, we need to get Tamika and Linda on in these conversations. And I talked to them about that when I saw them too. And I was talking about Linda Sosa and Tamika Mallory because I wanted you to
Okay.
talk about a little bit. You alluded to some of her facing some new attacks.
Oh
I
yeah,
want
yeah, yeah.
a
Yeah.
few minutes. You might as well break that down. I'm trying to get them back on the show too, both of them.
Yeah. Nah, just some of the things that some of the conversations she was having online. as it related to what was going on with Zohran Mamdani, and I think that clearly, you know, the folks who are having those kind of discussions with her are coming from a totally different space. You got to remember, this is something that she deals with day in and day out, right? And then when you talk about the level of injustice, that's going on, particularly around police violence and Zaid, from another perspective, when you talk about people who live, and we're talking about New York City now, when you talk about people in New York City and the minimum rent is say $3,700 a year, and you only make say $25,000 or $30,000, you can't afford to live there, right? And we're talking about the minimum rent is 37,000. I mean,
Correct.
that's
That's why I love my comrade Charles Barron.
Yeah.
Right? Charles, and he his show comes on right before ours.
Right.
He had a few things to say about the campaign too, right? And the only reason I can't get him on because when he started his show, he goes into the studio, right?
Right.
So he can't get out of the studio and get on with us the way we used to be able to get him on. Oh, he would definitely be here. But
Right.
one of the things that city council folks can do in New York is that development projects go through their offices. They have to be approved. And Charles was particularly important about not going about what the market rates is, but what is the rate, what's the base salary income rate for the given community, the area rate, right? If you're not talking about affordable housing to my base, get out of my office. That's how he used to get down. And he blocked gentrification areas in East New York like nobody else did. And he has some criticisms about Mamdani in some of the places where he's getting soft support in terms of how gentrification is taking place, right?
Right.
So I really wish we could really get him on, right? But that's there's some power there in New York, in Harlem. I have been trying to get my little brother Yusef Salam on. He's a city councilman of Harlem, the Central Park 5 survivor. Raymond Santana just ran for city council. He's one of the other survivors. He's ran for El Barrio. But before Yusef got elected, there was a sister who was a Democratic socialist who won the Harlem seat. Her name is Christine Richardson, right?
Did she win?
She won. She was there for a minute. She
Okay.
did not run for re-election, and here's why. It was a big development that came at her for 145th Street. Okay. And that was going and to sweeten this big luxury development that was supposed to have a minimal of some affordable housing seats. They went to Sharpton. Now I'm gonna talk about it. They went to Sharpton and said, "We're gonna give you the first floor so you can do a civil rights museum. How you like that?" The black Democratic establishment came after her tooth and nail because she blocked that development because it would have escalated gentrification right in the heart of Central Harlem. She had the heart and the spine to stand on principle, taken from the playbook of Charles Barron, to not go for that.
Right.
They came at her so viciously, she decided that her mental health was not worth fighting a whole lot of black folks who should have supported her on principle and were attacking her instead. Right. And I'm hoping Yusef, keeps his own identity and doesn't get corrupted by that machine because they're toxic. And they were more than likely, and some of them have already, fallen behind the other blackface that is Eric Adams. Even though Eric Adams have been sicking the police on us like dogs, even though Eric Adams done bedded down with Trump, all of that stuff. There's some serious problems with Eric Adams. It turned out to be a major disappointment to a whole lot of folks, right? But they have been the attack dogs for the Democratic Party, the larger, wealthy machine, right, at the expense of our own community in a way uh, that's not talked about enough. And that's Conrad's not here. Not I don't want to talk about it while he's not here, but that was at the heart of our argument,
Mm-hmm.
right? He would try and blame gentrification on democratic socialists. No,
Right, right. But Zaid, that's the point I'm trying to tell you now. That's
man,
what's
man,
happening online right now, right? And that's exactly what he's saying is going on
yes,
with the Mamdani group. That all of the people who voted for him basically were these gentrifiers, right? And that these are the particular people who are basically supporting Mamdani, and that we need to be careful because these are the people that are moving black folks out of their homes, particularly in Brooklyn and in Harlem.
no, and and we can thank the Hakeem Jeffries and those types for really being the ones that have been bedding down with that and not falling in on Charles Barron. Question we need to ask this next generation of black elected officials: why are you not modeling, if you care about affordable housing, a legacy like Charles Barron?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And it needs to be. I wish I had the time and the resources and the energy. I wish I was half my age. That would be my PhD dissertation. Right?
but
What that
remember, Charles told us that when he came on, he said that he would be willing to show other council members how he
Yes, he
did
did.
it,
Yes, he
right?
did.
You
Yes.
know how you can say to developers that
Christy listened. She listened to him and she did it
yeah,
and got attacked
yeah,
by the Negro Democrats in New York City.
yeah, yeah.
It was horrible. It was horrible.
I
And
mean,
I'm gonna try and reach out to her too. I don't know if she'll come on and talk about it. She doesn't really like to even talk about it anymore. But
yeah,
I would love to be able to get her on. Love to be able to get them two together,
yeah,
right? And then there are some other, like I said, there are some other DSA elected officials that are on that are in the legislature. There's 8 in the state legislature, and there's 3 on city council. I've had real contact with Jabbar Brisbart, who's state senator from Brooklyn, who shows up and doesn't exclude showing up in his district. He shows up. He shows up when D12 calls them, right? He
right,
showed up when the Jewish Voices for Peace took over Grand Central and did that mass civil disobedience. He shows up, right? There's a young Haitian sister, I can't call her name right now, uh, who's very strong in the 57th district, right? And DSA folks, they're not gentrifiers. They've been fighting against gentrification,
right.
right? But those voices need to hear from the black radical base of their community. Right? And I think that's the kind of stuff that Charles is raising. That Basim Chowie did a show last night on his program, Education at the Crossroads. And he had Milton Alamati on, and I forget the sister's name from Harlem, the Harlem News Network. Um, Good breakdown of the local machine and how the votes played out here and there. Milton, like Zamdami's parents, is from Uganda, and Milton laid out, the African background to Mamdani's family and whatnot. It was a good conversation. It's a good conversation, and this can be a very healthy, ongoing conversation that we certainly should be doing as we get closer and closer
Yeah,
to this election, for
yeah.
sure.
Because I think Zaid, what we should be doing is let's break down the myth. I mean, if folks are saying it's true, let's put it out there. Okay, let's test it, right? You saying that the model is not the model, let's test the model, right? And let's bring those people before us and let's have those conversations because at the end of the day, you heard Larry giving the history, you know, of the whole democratic socialism movement. as you know, from the '80s on, and then talked about it from a black perspective, and the fact that he said Dr. King was a democratic socialist.
That's right. He used to rap to Coretta using a socialist conversation.
Yeah,
That,
yeah,
when I read that out, I said, wow. Which tells you also how radical she was.
yeah, yeah,
They were indeed a power couple.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, you can easily see, Zaid, why that level of pushback from people, right, who are particularly on the right, you know, and then black folks, you know, who want to try and turn it into a black power movement and say, oh, if you guys vote for Mamdani, somehow you guys are going against the very struggle of black people. Why? Because, you know, these guys are gentrifiers, right? Who are coming into the black community, who are, you know, causing, you know, black folks who lived there for years not to be able to afford to live there. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we're hearing, right? And you know, and so that's why I wanted Larry to give the history of
Yes.
you know what that was, so
Mhm.
that and you saw some folks in the chat, you know, they were saying teach because our folks don't know what that is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what we're hearing. And so you got folks who are afraid that if black folk decide to vote for Mamdani because they want lower rent, somehow, you know, that's the wrong person to vote for. Well, I just said a moment ago, Zaid, if you can't afford $3,700, we're talking about that's the minimum monthly rent in New York City, right? And if you can't afford to pay that, well, where you going, to the bus station? Where you going, to the train station? Where you going? And so if you hear somebody like Mamdani says, well, you know, I mean, I'm going to do everything in my power. I don't know if he can freeze rent. I don't know if that's within the mayor's power, right? Or you know, or what powers he can use to put in place, right, underneath that. Because remember, you know, Trump is using powers that don't even exist to do things in this country.
Trump is using his bully pulpit power to push the right wing agenda, right?
Yeah,
A New York mayor who is a progressive can use the bully pulpit of the mayoral office to drive a larger New York City conversation that a city council could pick up.
right,
It would heighten city council authority in their local communities, like Charles Barron did, like
right,
Kristen Richardson dared to do, right? So it could drive the conversation in the direction it ought to go,
right,
even if the actual power may not necessarily reside in his hands. This is a hip hop show. The power of the mic matters,
that's right, that's right,
right? And that young boy knows how to use the mic,
right.
right? And so more all power to him. I hope he does well. Personally, I really do. But
But I,
yeah, and our elder radicals, I like all the folks we just named, certainly want to do what they can to help him have that conversation that's particular to our community and our community's needs and our community's culture
right,
to
right.
help him get over the hump.
And that's what I'm saying is let's have the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what Mark was saying. You know, this is great. You know, let's have these conversations because at the end of the day, you know, we don't want to stroke fear into our people because I'm telling you, Zaid, if we don't get this worked out, like I don't know if it was you or Larry, but somebody was saying that when you think about New York City, a New York mayor, right? That's a world stage, right? And that is particularly why they want to make sure that somebody who's coming from, you know, that particular perspective do not get that stage, right? And do not make it so that the folks in New York City who are living below the poverty line actually get an opportunity to enjoy the city just as much as someone who's making $1 billion, right? So I mean, but let's have the conversation. I mean,
Absolutely.
what does it matter?
Indeed.
You know,
Yeah.
And from our perspective, we want to have it from a black perspective. How is this going to affect black people, right? And that's why I got to tell you, I was trying to reach Professor Smalls. I would love to have his input and sort of see
He's been traveling like crazy. He's been as busy as he's ever been.
yeah.
And we were supposed to do a conversation from a Malcolm organization. Haven't been able to pin him down, and he's just a minute from his 80th. He's as busy as he's ever been. And he sends his apologies because he definitely
Oh,
when
okay.
he's around, he's available.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But those are the people we need to talk to the elders, man, right? Because they were here when Amiri was here, right? We need to get their perspective on what because if you got folk trying to stroke this democratic socialist fear, let's talk to black folks who were back there, when Dr. King was here, when he was trying to, put that kind of idea into the marketplace, particularly, when I would think that these folks would probably have a problem with, making sure that, folks, everybody, get this fair salary. You know, I'm sure that all these folks would have trouble with that. You know, and especially when Mayor Baraka, did that campaign where he was making sure that people got checks, who were living below the poverty line, which is what Dr. King was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Guaranteed income.
Exactly. Right.
One of the accomplishments of Mayor Baraka that's gone under the radar that nobody talks about.
Yeah. Now that would be great, right?
And that's straight out of Dr. King's playbook.
Exactly. Now that would be one way to even that I don't know if that's within Mamdani's power. The mayor did a pilot program, but imagine that. So if the rent's $3,700, okay, no problem. So Mamdani, let's put that in place.
Let's come up with a subsidy.
Yes,
as a part of a guaranteed income strategy.
Exactly. Right. How about that? And those are conversations, Zaid, that could be had, right? When you talk about policies and putting those ideas forward in order to be able to get the support from black folks. Okay, what about this? What about that? Because he says that he comes in the model of a Dr. King. That's what he said, right?
Mm.
So those are conversations, man, that I think that we can have in the coming
That was one of
weeks.
the fears about Dr. King too.
Huh?
That's one of the fears about Dr. King that the FBI had when they started conspiring to take him out. That if he had considered running for office, that he might be somebody formidable to deal with.
Oh, no doubt about it. And that's probably what their real fear is with Mamdani, right? As they look at him, and they don't want those socialist ideas in the marketplace.
And you know what? And you know who's going to be a real problem for him? Let's say he does win, and he should, right? Is the police.
Yeah, he won't even be able to control his own police department.
That's going to be. I mean, the compradors ain't been able to control the New York City police. How's this little socialist young brother going to do?
Yeah.
And quite frankly, we need to be concerned about his own safety. I mean, that's all of that stuff is in the mix.
Yeah,
stakes are that great.
Yeah, at that point, you're right, because some of these Donald Trump crazies may try to take him out, right?
And it's crazy.
Well, Zaid, we come to the end of the show, so
yes, sir.
What we can do is let's wrap it up. I mean, obviously, we want to thank Larry and thank Mark Thompson for coming through and starting that conversation with us tonight.
Starting an ongoing conversation.
Yes.
We'll continue to have. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Right.
So we want to thank them for coming on. And then, of course, you can thank the other folks who came on at 7.
Romans Henry, Salvation and Social Justice is one of my former Cubs in the party. And Felicia Simmons from National Action Network, Monmouth County. Alicia's based in Asbury and is looking to run for the assembly down in her community, and she's got to deal with some trashy, New Jersey small town political corruption that's going to be coming for her from the Democratic Party and not the Republican Party when she runs, and as she's already stated. And then that library discussion that we had with Beth Zak Cohen and I forgot the young man's name that quick. B. Schwartz, who's based at the Van Buren branch of the library. Around them, there's the need to bring their salaries up and improve their work conditions and a greater fundamental investment in the Newark library system, right? And that means not just the main branch, but the local branches too. The libraries are part of the stabilizing institutions in our community, and we need to treat them and value them as such.
Yep.
Right? So it's great conversation all around. Look for Rhino to get back. Look for Hakeem to get back down with us. Donna is at a family reunion, she said in a text, right? That's why she didn't join on tonight. Asia, whenever she comes in, she brings in good guests, our whole team. And of course, the great Jonathan Alston. Alston is joining his new place in those of us who are in the ranks of married men and women.
Yep. There you go.
Wish I could join y'all. Yeah.
Well, we want to definitely say, we wish him and Ashley, nothing but Godspeed, and hope that they enjoyed their honeymoon, and we'll see them when they get back. Right. So
tomorrow,
listen, y'all. We thank y'all. Go ahead, Zach.
Tomorrow, 12 noon, 12 Springfield Avenue by the Newark Rebellion Monument. Right? Remember the uprising in 1967, 58 years later, right? It all matters, because if anybody's going to attack us in the land of fascism, guess who it's going to be? It's going to be the police, right?
There you go. Yeah.
We'll see you next week, same black time, and we'll see you in the whirlwind.
See you in the whirlwind.
It don't stop.